What do you want?
Are we doing AI?
Not really, but barely. What's
No.
up? Isn't it like midnight for you?
Yeah, I just came home.
From what?
Well,
Your mom's.
I was out.
On a Monday night, bro?
On a
Didn't you say you're in
Monday?
Germany? Isn't everything closed right now?
Oh yeah, party time on Germany.
I mean,
What?
I'm sorry that I can't sleep. I didn't know you're a doctor.
That's okay. So you were definitely out doing illegal stuff. I'm reporting you. But go ahead. Okay, what's up?
Nice. No, just like real quick before I go to bed. I just heard that you were talking about AI, and I heard the Vosh commentary. For Anthropic, most like there are three probable scenarios. Like the one is the Vosh scenario, where he says, "Oh, Trump doesn't like Anthropic," and he just banned it for being petty, which is somewhat likely because if you look at the benchmarks, GPT 5.5 is about even. If we look at vulnerability and exploits, they are not that far before like Anthropic is not that far before OpenAI.
Okay.
For one, two, it might just be that Anthropic bribed someone, and all of this is marketing hype. The Mythos model is not that much better. It is good, undoubtedly, but it is not that much better than current frontier models. And the number three is that no one's talking about perhaps the model is just too expensive, and they bribed someone to like get an out. If you look at how much the token usage per hour costs, I think if I remember correctly, it was like $10 per I think 1 million tokens,
Okay.
and like $40 or $50 per like a million output. Sorry, I should have said input tokens and output tokens. 10 per input, $10 per million input tokens, and like $40 per million output tokens. If you scaled it up using the Mythos model, is basically the same per hour as employing the median computer science IT guy in the United States. The model costs an ungodly amount of money. With an estimated, I think, 10 billion training costs. If you like throw this to the public, it is essentially burning Anthropic's money, like point blank. And it might as well be that the model was stopped simply because it was too expensive, and Anthropic kind of realized it too late, and then I don't know.
I
contacted
just
someone
don't
in the
think there's a way that
administration.
they did that. I don't
Wow,
think they
really,
conned
Mooten?
somebody in the administration to ban it as a marketing stunt.
Huh.
And it might be like it could be. Who the fuck knows? Who the fuck knows where these CEOs are currently with the United States administration? That is like
I very much
yeah.
doubt that that's the case, given that, for one, they specifically announced what they were going to do in terms of there was a short window of access. I believe it was up until the 22nd of this month was what they were planning to actually have it available for. And anything past that, it was available only on API at basically not included in your Claude Max plan or whatever. So I really don't buy this idea that it's somehow some kind of marketing ploy because it was too expensive or something. It just doesn't make any sense, given they'd already signaled that they had plans to deal with this. And also, like if it really came down to it, they could just say, "Oh, sorry, it's too expensive. We're stopping doing it, or we're raising prices." Like that's not.
I feel like the marketing ploy would just be
Crazy.
like, we're not going to release this to everybody. We're going to like do a trickle out to like these certain companies because it's like really, really too good, like blah, blah, blah. That would have been the marketing.
That's what they'd done previously.
Yeah,
That's
what I'm
what they
saying.
did.
That was the marketing, it felt like.
Yeah.
Not, oh, the United States has banned it. We can't give it to you anymore. At least that's how I feel. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it seems like they are quite annoyed at the fact that it's been banned as well, for, as you can imagine, obvious reason.
Not like I'm not saying that this is the 100% case.
Sure.
Like I said, there are like three cases. But it is strange that Anthropic, I think 2 weeks ago, filed their stuff to go public, and then 1 week later, suddenly their model. No, wait. 8 days later, the model gets released, and then now it suddenly gets banned. It might either be, like I said, that Trump is just mad at them. It might be that they are doing something behind the scenes. I don't know, but like those things are possibilities. Because if you now look at the people Googling Anthropic, they are now always seeing Anthropic in concert with the idea that Anthropic, rather Mythos, is this big bad model that can just hack everything. And even though that's not true, that's the impression that people now have, and now people want to get their hands on that. Like, if you see the videos that were just watched on stream, these people are going mental about being deprived of Mythos, even though it is essentially another model on the capability of 5.5 for OpenAI.
It's a little harsh to what it seems like Mythos was. Like, it does seem like it is a decent step up, but it's the kind of thing that, some GPT 5.6, when it releases in probably a few weeks, could reasonably come close to, I think. But it is like a pretty decent step up. It's just nothing like absolutely insane and unexpected, I don't think. The other thing is I really don't buy that Anthropic is at all okay with this, because their own staff aren't able to use this, and so they're unable to use their own model internally because they don't have the facilities to like verify, oh well, these people are US nationals, and all of their foreign employees as well are unable to use their own model, which they appear to use quite extensively during development. So I just don't think it makes any sense that Anthropic would be happy about this, especially given that reportedly it wasn't even like a full jailbreak or anything. It was basically like getting it to do some bare minimum security work that like not only could 5.5 do, but likely older models could do as well. It just doesn't make sense for Anthropic to be happy about this.
Let's reverse the question. Why is 5.5 not banned? Why is it only Mythos that is currently being targeted?
Well, for one, Anthropic is not particularly happy at the US government is not particularly happy with Anthropic because Anthropic was blocking them from using stuff for military applications that the US government wanted them to.
Well, okay, maybe I'm totally misremembering, but I feel like I'm reading that Anthropic went back on that deal and actually partnered with the War Department.
I think they basically said they'd agree to work with them in some capacity, but I think Anthropic is still basically their hard lines of no mass domestic surveillance and no fully autonomous weapons, I think, were their two main red lines. I don't believe that's changed. So like anything that's been worked out has been within that, I believe. But also, OpenAI basically took a bunch of contract stuff with the US government, I believe. Like OpenAI is now working more closely with the US government because they were willing to allow for those use cases.
I mean, sure, but like that doesn't change the core claim that it's either Anthropic being specifically targeted, or it is a marketing ploy in some regard. And the other thing,
I think it's probably Anthropic being targeted is the most likely thing.
It might be. Yeah, absolutely, but it also doesn't change that Mythos isn't that much better than what's currently available in the market.
Yes, that's also true, especially if you've seen any of the fusion stuff that OpenRouter's done, where it turns out you can just run like two different models and basically get them to summarize at the end, and they will perform better than Mythos in most cases. So yeah, like it's not a crazy step up, but it seems quite a nice step up and meaningful.
Where do you benchmark this? Because I literally just looked at the evaluation of OpenAI's cyber security capabilities from AISI, and they are better than Mythos. And when I look at while you were talking, I browsed through it. And when I looked at Cybench, the Mythos preview is like 4 percentage points better for the capture the flag tasks than Opus 4.7. That doesn't seem really big to me. Like even Anthropic's main site.
For security stuff, I'm not convinced it's that meaningfully big. Like it does seem a bit better, but not like massively so. and I believe I can't remember exactly which benchmark it is, but it did seem even in the AISI stuff, that was the, I believe, previous Mythos checkpoint rather than the currently released one. So this was the one that was previously being released under the Project Glasswing, where it was limited to only certain companies that they'd benchmarked. So I would expect the one that was very recently released to be better performing on benchmarks.
True.
Generally.
We were speaking mostly about cybersecurity, yes?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay,
I could be wrong about that AIS, I think, but last I checked, what they had benchmarked was the Mythos internal preview used in Project Glasswing.
Right.
How much AI do you use, German dude?
Too much. Way too much.
Okay, I'm just curious. I'm not trying to come out as antagonistic, but something I notice for people that don't really use it in the ways that allows you to understand the capabilities of models is they mention benchmarks. Benchmarks are the most stupidest, piece of shit, dog shit way to measure an AI's capability. There was plenty of points in GPT 4 to 5 to every aspect of Opus 4.5 to 6 to 7 where the capabilities were not grounded across the board. Okay, there are plenty of times where, for example, when we started doing test time compute, or we started using more mixture of experts, or we started using more reasoning or real life reasoning from feedback, that we found that there was very not evenly distributed gains that were not, you couldn't just see them in benchmarks. In the industry, or at least from people I talk to in the industry who actually work in Silicon Valley on these things, none of them give a shit about benchmarks. They put them there for literal advertising, and basically no one outside that cares about them except for people that are arguing them. So when you say that, oh, well, the benchmarks are exactly the same as 5.5, which might be true. When I first saw Mythos, I thought that the hype around it was stupid. Because if the people were saying that it was one-shotting every single fucking application in existence, then the benchmarks would be it would have 100%ed everything, right? But when you can't also have the idea there's a middle ground. It's not destroying everything, but it's also not the same as 5.5. Most likely, there is too many people in industries that matter that are trying to lobby against the government to stop these things, and they would not. It's not in their interest for Amazon to lobby against this. They are literally selling compute to Anthropic. Whenever people talk about AI in the kind of current landscape, if you don't have an understanding of the three core aspects, which is the model, the hardware, and the kind of economic situation, you're going to be very, very wrong on your general macro takes. And here, you're wrong on the marketing. But if you kind of get the idea that could be potentially marketing, but the thing is that there is no reason for Anthropic to market at all. They are completely compute locked, even with the Grok stuff they just got. There has been a tremendous amount of issues with the maintenance and server utilization in terms of Anthropic side compared to OpenAI, which was very obvious. They do not give a shit about marketing. Everyone wants their shit. They do not need to ask the government to stop their fucking model from being used to then get people to use their thing. Even fucking random generalists are now talking about Claude and stuff like that. It's not a realistic approach to this argument. Probably what's happening is there's a lot of information around, there's probably lobbying going on, and everyone's trying to figure out and make their own opinion on what's going on based on very limited information. But it is definitely not marketing, and it is definitely not related to benchmarks.
Okay. Wait, just regarding the benchmarks, in general, I agree. Most benchmarks are really iffy and are somewhat contaminated. That doesn't mean that no benchmarks are useful. At the end of the day, we have to find some ways to evaluate the capabilities. And typically, when I say benchmarks, I don't mean the random problems that the model owners throw their own models and then post on their websites. I mean, things like I said, AISI, or explicit capture the flag tasks, or explicit exploit ratings, or explicit vulnerability ratings. Because when we speak about benchmarks, we have to look at what exactly are we trying to rate and what exactly are we trying to achieve. And then we can go a bit deeper into the conversation, but in general, you're obviously correct about the general benchmark. But I'm not going to.
I would
go into
agree
con-
with your. I would agree with the idea that there are benchmarks that have high use cases, right? That wasn't my point, but I'm saying your argument is basing it on the political aspect. Like you're using these benchmarks to justify a political action.
But no, the two things that I just wanted to say was one, I am not convinced that Mythos is that much better than 5.5. And it's probably not going to stay that much better for the longest amount of time, and that makes me question why, in particular, Mythos is being banned and not 5.5. I can see that for one, it is literally just a political action, literally just lobbying, where the administration focuses on Anthropic because they did not take their government's contracts for whatever reason. But I could also see that it might be something else entirely. It might be the cost. It might be the.
Why do you keep mentioning the costs and marketing? Can you justify this? You keep using this innuendo, but there's absolutely no way this makes sense from a cost basis because the primary cost of the model is to train it. In inference, they probably actually get close to break even depending on enterprise contracts. This is like the most nonsensical take, and I want to hear your affirmative reason for believing it to be true.
Can I finish the first one?
You've repeated the same thing over and over and over again. Get to definition.
Okay. Listen, how much does inference cost for the current model? Like literally math it out.
What? We don't have access to their direct inference costs, but why they charge more for Mythos? They charge more for Fable. So what is your posit? That they released this, they trained it, so they did most of the cost.
No, he's talking about the customer cost. He's talking about the employee cost.
End user?
Well, yeah, he's talking. The thing is, I was going to say on this as well. It's like one of the other things where so if you look at the past models, they go up in like there's like a kind of cross trend downwards. It's because the model will be able to do more with less. Essentially, is like the argument that people would use against it. But the real question is like how many tokens are you using? They're always going to use more tokens, right? So the models are going to go up in price for the end user, but the actual trend is more tokens being used, but they're doing more with less. So it doesn't naturally match out to like your idea. It's equivalent to like hiring an employee. Like maybe it is for some people, but for like enterprise, which is going to be like 90% of their revenue for Anthropic, especially for like the highest end thing, probably like 70 to 80 actually. But for a new model, it's going to be 70. Most of it's going to be enterprise because it will have to slowly like transition to the consumers. It's not going to be the same. It's not going to be you just take the token cost and then times it by,
and Mythos and Fable are actually quite inefficient in long-run tasks in comparison to Opus 4.8 and in comparison to GPT 5.5. So actually on a token basis and on an outcomes basis, this is not some sort of cheap subsidized model that Anthropic is putting out there such that they need to create this huge chaos for themselves because they have a cost issue. We've seen this in all of the public benchmarks that, again, are on any sort of long-running task. It's less cost-efficient by far compared to older Anthropic or OpenAI models. Why would they need to self-crisis to get?
What do you mean by cost inefficient? Do you mean it costs less for the same token
do more
usage,
turns
or it costs?
And use tools in a way that is less efficient in comparison to 4.8 or GPT 5.5 when all three of them can complete the same task?
I mean, but isn't that my argument that Mythos costs more, or Fable, I should say, costs
more to who?
To the end user, to the input token and the output generator token.
Why would that cause Anthropic to self-crisis to stop serving it? How do you think they charge?
Well, as far as I understand it, in the very limited time where Fable and Mythos were live, the input rates and the weekly rates, I should say, of token usage were very, very limited.
Hold on, wait. Hold on. Unless I'm totally lost right now, or there's like a fundamental question that it seems like your claim is that for Neuroscience Guy, you're claiming, and maybe this is true, that the tokens that people spend are heavily subsidized internally by the company, and that the issue is that by making this model available to the public, they're burning through a ton of cash internally because they don't charge enough for these tokens. Is that true? But it seems like Shervin is saying that's not true. Is that true?
Well, that's definitely not true.
It's not true. He's wrong about that. You precisely correct us.
Okay, that's a fundamental disagreement right now.
Yeah, if you want
and it's
like
not a
a
disagreement. It's complete.
Well, no, I
it's
understand, but I'm saying all the other stuff you guys are talking about is beyond the point. This is what he's saying. He's saying they had to take the model offline. They didn't want to admit the costs were too high, and that they were subsidized too much internally. But it seems like, is there any evidence for that being true?
And again, Anthropic,
there's no good justification. It's not a public
tremendous
company.
density of the revenues enterprise where people are paying for tokens or paying as you go. They're not relying on $20 a month or $200 a month subscriptions. A lot of it's also through third-party harnesses that are also pay as you go. So none of its usage, especially in comparison to OpenAI, is on this heavily subsidized basis. So they're not going to see this as being a major cost factor in comparison to older models.
I also as a quick politics check, and I understand this is not necessarily directly related to the AI convo. My understanding from looking at everything that's happened in the markets and politically everything over the past 6 months, the feeling that I have is these companies are all so unfathomably fucking flushed with cash or investment opportunities or debt that literally everybody will be falling over themselves to give $750 trillion future dollars to all these companies. The idea of risking the reputation of your company by going into the government, the most leaky government of all time, and trying to request that they do some artificial ban to drive up hype for a product that already has such an insane amount of demand and for people that have raised so much money, that seems like a hugely unnecessary risk to me, I guess. I don't know.
If the revenue has gone from 13 billion annual run rate to 47, they would have infinite venture financing options. And again, just from a cost basis perspective, this is not less efficient to Anthropic.
Okay, wait. So Anthropic did have I guess be super charitable. Anthropic has had issues with securing enough compute. They've been getting better at it, but still it's always been an issue. They've been behind in compute in terms of the rest of them, frontier labs. But I just want to say that they literally they can't. Their top researchers can't even work on the model. They pretty much have to stop all development because of the export controls. I feel like that's way more, way bigger of a deal and way bigger of a cost than losing a couple days.
The thing as well to keep in mind is with this whole argument, well, pretty basically all three arguments you gave. There's they're kind of centered on things that don't really add up. So it's in the benefit for the US government to keep the AI bubble going. They want it to keep going. It's also in the benefit of the companies that that are complaining to the government to keep the AI bubble going. It's also in the benefit of the labs to keep the AI bubble going. There is no one in this situation that benefits from taking a little spat and taking the biggest feedback loop that keeps the AI bubble going from stopping. There is no one in the US government right now that wants to go, oh yeah, let's fuck around and find out and see if we can explode the bubble and then shove everything into chaos when the stock market is basically the only good thing about the government right now in terms, or maybe the border, but no one cares about that, right? There's no realistic intention or incentive for any actor here.
Perspective, all companies do not benefit from enterprises now not being able to plan appropriately. If you had plans to use Fable to give Fable access to your employees, whether or not you can easily switch to an OpenAI model or to other providers, this hurts everybody from the perspective of reliability. The industry is damaged somewhat permanently. Obviously, it'll recover. But the idea, again, that they self-inflict this wound of planning and integration such that, okay, we're going to temporarily solve a cost issue or a compute issue that we could communicate about or restrict in other ways. So instead, we're going to tell all of our customers who just started spending a ton on Fable, who moved subscriptions over, who are going to now request refunds, they have enterprise contracts with SLA agreements, but suddenly, we're just going to do this 180 on all of it for the sake of marketing or cost saving is, again, just absolutely absurd.
Okay, two things. Number one, as far as I understand, Anthropic is going public. Why would they go public if they are so floaty in cash?
Because it's the amount of money that you can raise is fucking retarded.
So many reasons.
So much money.
But if they go public, they have to open up their own models.
I'll answer. Three things.
Wait, what?
What do you mean? That's a really important question. What's your basis on that? What's your basis of that? Sorry.
Hold on. Let me just answer this question. A, they get to raise a lot more money than from private markets and potentially at better valuations. B, when they go public, people get to participate in the upside moving forward. If AI has a tremendous communication and public relations issue right now, which it does, getting people and retail to invest allows there to be a narrative shift as to who gets to benefit from the increasing valuation rather than just Anthropic employees and investors. And C, all of these companies want liquidity for their employees and their staff, who are some of the most in-demand talent possible. And again, going public is one of the only ways that you're going to be able to give them increasing liquidity.
True, but if they go public, they have to open up their cash flows and they have to open up the way to demonstrate. Wait, let me they have to demonstrate a way to be profitable, because the investors will only invest in the hopes.
I think that like if we were talking about the stock market like 30 years ago, or if we were coming this from like a finance 101, I agree. But the entire stock market right now is all, it's just everything is a VC. Every single market, every single company.
Well, this is really weird, because like you're saying this, but like for the last 30 years, the model in the market for the hottest sector has been your sales matter, like cash burning companies. Like for example, I mean, CRM went public in 2011. They were not cash positive, and they were still valued on their prices, like price of sales or the revenue. Like you don't have to be you seem like to have very weird understanding of like the financial markets, and then also
wait, are you talking to me or the other guy?
No, him, yeah. Because like
okay.
you're saying like they have to open up their books. That's not something that's negative for them. Everyone loves them, and the books have been leaked plenty of times. I've looked at their basically the numbers for their books. Like
it also really doesn't matter that much. Like the capitalization strategies and all that shit maybe for other more conventional companies in the past matter, but now it just seems to literally be like, how hot can you make your company by setting massive mountains of cash on fire and just training and working and R&D and everything else.
All everyone cares about is the ARR. If your growth is increasing and it keeps going up, then that you're going to keep getting higher valuation, because they're going to keep extrapolating that to the future. That's every single bubble or every single like miniature bubble ever. That is just completely a fact.
If that is the case, we're just going to pump until the bubble pops and until we have the biggest financial recession.
Well, yeah, but that's non-related to your justifications, because I don't want to go into that sort, because you've made these claims, right? And you come on, making claims a lot of time. Like, where is the underlying kind of, where is the justifications for making these claims that like these companies, don't want to go public, or these companies, don't want to have to open up their books or stuff like this? Like, where is this coming from?
Well, okay. For one, the claim that I made was that there are multiple different possibilities as to why Anthropic might be pulled off here. And I said, it might be. I'm not 100% conviction behind those claims. I'm probably like 50%. And I think I adequately communicated that I'm not 100%. You can laugh, but I think I adequately...
Anthropic might be Steven at night when he's off stream and it's just him creating Fable. That might be true as well.
Do you doubt that the entire thing that Mythos was pushed out as this big, massive cybersecurity thing was not a marketing ploy like half a year ago?
What do you mean was a marketing ploy? This model is not like so significant.
No, he's talking about a year ago or something. He's bringing something different.
Glasswing.
Yeah, can it be both? Can it be both? Like obviously, Anthropic's going to pump it, but like like there definitely was legitimate concern about it. Like, there's a reason why it was leaked to or given out to.
New models. We don't know all their capabilities.
To be clear,
we've seen Mythos used, regardless of the fact that now 5.5 in a harness is really, really effective. We know that Mythos was used for a lot of patching of open source projects, of private repos, of a lot of vulnerabilities. It's a capable model. Is it 50% more capable? No, but it's still a far more capable model than everyone had, kind of the same sort of comfort level with before, and so they're using phased release. Is it part of marketing? Sure. Is it part of marketing such that we now should judge them as being motivated by this in this point in time? Absolutely not.
Just to be, maybe I'm mixing things up here, but wasn't Mythos the one that had its own vulnerabilities when it was leaked?
No.
Such that they didn't even put Mythos in, like their own code base into Mythos.
Mean?
Isn't what?
Well,
What are you saying?
Well, if I remember correctly, there was one Anthropic model, and I think it was Mythos, that was very much hyped. But when it might have been the Claude agent, that was very much hyped, and then people looked at the code.
OpenClaw, which is a third-party harness, which is open source, which has absolutely nothing
it is currently
to do with the models
OpenAI.
And it's not with OpenAI. It's a nonprofit foundation, and it's an open source project that's a harness around any model. You misunderstand the difference.
No, they got the OpenAI acquired the guy who made it for like 10 million.
They to an open source foundation, and you can use any model in the harness. It is not.
Wait, to be clear, I want to. Sorry, I just want to. What you said about the idea that don't you think it's still a marketing campaign? I'm just curious because none of the capabilities or stuff like that matter. What we should care about is who is saying it, like who's spreading these rumors, right? Like I said earlier, all of the incentives to the people earlier was like to like keep it going. So like if you look at the banks, for example, they were the biggest people that were sounding the alarm on this. They have no reason to sound the alarm on this if it is not true. You can say it's a marketing campaign, and maybe it is. I have no way to prove that. But you're putting onus on such onus on the marketing campaign part with no justification in it, except for the fact that, a company obviously wants to sell their shit more. But then you could also say I could say the argument, well, if there's something that's actually really fucking dangerous, then obviously everyone who has this system that is going to be affected by it is obviously going to try and stop it from coming out or like sound the warning line. So then why are you like putting onus on to one thing with no proof, but then on the other side we have quite a lot of proof that proves the opposite?
I mean, but kind of looping the point that I was trying to make.
You're just going.
I mean, you could also like let me speak and not just instantly interrupt me.
There's something useful here. Your understanding of the market, I think, is important. I'll give you an example. When you talk about companies being unprofitable, Amazon, PayPal, eBay.
Just so you know, I will answer the other question
line.
after
Do you know what they share in common?
Finish.
Do you know what they share in common? Those 4 companies during the .com bubble. Amazon, PayPal, eBay, Priceline.
I'm going to finish.
They were unprofitable. They were unprofitable. I think your understanding of what the market's value or what a company can do when it's public is just driving you to poor conclusions. You have to have a good foundation on understanding this.
Okay, cool. My point earlier is not that this is the case. All I'm saying is if only Anthropic is banned and not 5.5 is banned, then it is a good question to ask, why is 5.5 still open? Is it maybe, like I said in the beginning, maybe it's targeting, maybe it's lobbying, maybe it's because they didn't take the defense contracts, maybe it's 100,000 things, but it might also be marketing. And that is just something to keep in mind. I agree
with that, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
But
nothing more. There's nothing more to say to that. I'm not... Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, no, I'm not trying to be aggro. I'm just, I just want to pinpoint on the things that I thought you brought up and, like, a way to, like, resolve it. What I'm trying to get at is, like, where's the kind of key reasoning coming from that brought you to come on to say these things? And then you can say that, I agree, there are a lot of reasons that could, and these could be the things, right? But what I want to know is why did you feel that it is, like, marketing against the kind of... And then I'm bringing up the things that prove that, or at least in my opinion, prove that it isn't, right? I'm not trying to tell you that you're saying this is 100% true, right? I just want to know why you're saying these things. Because, like, from my perspective at least, it doesn't seem like it's a marketing campaign, at least from what I know, right? And from my perspective, it doesn't seem like they're, I guess that's basically really the marketing, because the marketing kind of spirals off into all of the other parts, right? It would be the reason why they would tell the government to do something. It would be whatever those reasons, right? So why do you believe that it is like a marketing scheme? What brought you to believe those things, other than just, it's a company and they want to make money?
Okay. The Mythos model is basically more or less a big hype project. It is good. I 100% agree. We don't know the entire capabilities and whatnot, but since the inception of the Mythos model, it has been centered around, this big bad model that can cybersecurity hack everything. It is... I'm not saying that this is 100% the case, but it is very convenient that, 2 weeks ago, under file, Anthropic went to the stock market, released their model, and now this happens. It just might be, that it was presented to the US government in the hopes of like any hype, in the hopes of like any concerted effort, in the hopes of lobbying, and it backfired. That might be a possibility. Not saying that it is, but it is sensible to like have this conversation.
Any evidence for that claim? Do you have any evidence for that possibility? Do you have any evidence for that implication, for that notion? What's your evidence other than the fact that you think that Anthropic, a company, markets, as all companies do? I think it's convenient that when I go to Walmart, they sell me items where they're going to make a profit margin. That's quite convenient. I think that's actually one of the most convenient things I've ever seen in retail. So can you
there's a difference.
Make a point beyond just using the word,
there's a difference between saying this is the case and saying, well, it might be a possibility. Because it's literally the same with SpaceX. SpaceX ran around the stock market, put their shares at 130, played the stock market for fools just because Elon Musk was behind this, to not consider that it might be marketing or that it might be lobbying that backfired is not good. We can have this point at the back of our mind without going outside and say, well, this must 100% be the reality. And that is all I'm saying. It might be a thing that if we speak about it, we should have this in the back of our mind. It might always be marketing. Nothing.
I agree. We should talk about it, to be clear. I'm not on the side that...
Thank you.
I think that what your point is. I just wanted to know where you're coming from. Really, I disagree, but I wanted to know where you're coming from.
Like,
I just feel like it's so like there's
sorry.
just information missing here where I just don't see how this is remotely comparable to stuff like the SpaceX thing. When I mean, if you look at any of the total addressable market that SpaceX was claiming, I mean, hell, even the AI stuff aside, which seems pretty insane that they apparently basically think they're going to capture the entire AI market as their total addressable market, but also that. Like, I think they were estimating for total addressable market for their ads was something like 4 times what Google ads are currently making. Like that's the kind of stuff that SpaceX was doing. Meanwhile, Anthropic it basically seems to have just been doing the same as they did before, except they were finally releasing, in a sort of wider stage thing, Mythos. But like Mythos existed before this. It's not some magic new model. It just wasn't publicly available to everyone yet. And it does seem like, despite, sure, it's hyped up to some degree, but there are real capabilities. Like, it's not like all of the claims of what Mythos has done and is capable of doing are just fabricated. Like that, it does appear to be finding legitimate like bugs and issues, in the security of various very well-established, long-existing applications. So I just don't see how this idea that it's like all marketing when, like you can say it's being used for marketing, sure, but like that's making best of the situation now. Like especially given this really hurts Anthropic internally as well.
Yeah, what's the benefit of this for Anthropic? I don't.
Yeah,
there's like nothing
actually,
good for this.
Radiant, that's a really good point because there is actually an argument that Anthropic has wanted this to happen. I don't believe it, but you can base it on a variety of change of behaviors. Unlike what you're saying about, they're just doing it for, again, for the purposes of the IPO or cost control. What we do know about Anthropic and the people and the executives in question, and their history can prove this, there's evidence to it, is that they really do think we're at a point where safety is a concern, and they want government regulation, and they've been calling for it for a decade, and they started their company because they thought OpenAI was too accelerationist. And so there is actually an argument, again, not what I believe in personally, that Dario is forcing this issue and wants confrontation with the government. This is why, for example, if you open Claude Code right now, there's a Claude Fable 5 is currently unavailable toast that you actually can't dismiss. It reminds me back in the day when Uber would get banned by a mayor in that city, they would pop a little button that would be like, press this button to sign this petition or to send an email to your mayor. It's kind of like hey, we want you to know what's going on, because there is a chance that this confrontation leads to other dynamics, right? Does it get other companies in the room around a proper auditing process for new models? Does it make the government have a third-party auditing around new models that they don't currently have? There's all sorts of dynamics, but again, we would evidence that by saying there's a change in behavior here that actually aligns, and so Dario is deciding, okay, I actually believe we're at the point in which Mythos represents something net new, so let me do this to force a confrontation. But they don't need it to have a wonderful IPO. They don't need it to raise money for further compute. They might need it to force, again, a policy discussion, but again, that would be the argument.
Okay, but even so if you think about Anthropic as a company, right? Like, right now we see OpenAI and Anthropic like literally leapfrogging each other with models like every couple of weeks. Like, why would they decide to cut off like up to, let's say, a week of revenue of their best model, or like their little like position in time, when they're ahead of OpenAI? Why would they want to cut that off so they lose all that money, and then also like completely stop their research right now? Like their top researcher, Karpathy, he literally cannot touch these models because he's not a U.S. citizen.
Exceptions for that very soon. That's not something.
Maybe sometime soon, but it's still a pause in the development. Like this is a huge
I agree with
like
you, but
issue.
If you're Dario and you really believe that this is one of the most important safety moments ever, and that even his own life might be at risk, like these are things Anthropic folks believe. Like if you take them seriously, if you read their writing over many years, they truly believe.
He's right.
This is literally.
I don't think they're cultists, but I think that
the people inside those companies are cultists. 100%.
Some of them are for sure. But again,
So I
want
Dario...
you to take seriously the notion that if that's true, then it would be a reasonable action. Again, I put that at less than 2%, but it would be a reasonable action for him to take based on all of his writing, based on all of the ways in which that company has to say, okay, if I can't otherwise bring people to the table, because he's been trying, right? He goes to every conference, he goes to Davos, he does interviews, he says, here's what I think might happen to jobs, here's biosafety. He brings up these concerns and no one is changing their behavior, right? We haven't seen action. We haven't seen behavioral change. So what's the one final thing you might do? Again, I'm not saying this is true, less than 2%. But the one thing you might do is force confrontation with the government that, yes, kneecaps him, but also brings other companies to a process table because they are now concerned. This is the industry-wide concern that's going to, the video earlier made a good point about this that I really believe in, where we're going to see that all companies are going to be nervous to release models as frequently, as many checkpoints, or without kind of proper process. So again, it foundationally makes sense. Does it make sense to do it for the sake of an IPO? Absolutely not.
Can I like I feel so it's like the biggest like throw ever. Like Dario would be like basically like
it might literally be
like,
that. Sorry, it might literally be that they went to the what?
No, you're good to cut Radiant off.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, that they went to the government, that they tried to lobby for the model, and they got like, I don't know, Pete Hegseth in a room and showed them how massive their cybersecurity whatnot was. And he was like, oh no, big scary model, we have to block it. It might be lobbying gone wrong. There might like be a million trillion things.
Hold on, we know that there's a voluntary framework for these companies to go show the government their models because of a signed EO, and that OpenAI and Anthropic supported that voluntary framework for at least a year or two now. So again, I don't know this notion that like they will randomly lobby the government to randomly get Pete Hegseth to feel a certain way is completely out of band. What?
Why was 5.5 not banned?
What you mean the one that was closed off?
Asking me.
Why didn't the U.S. government ban 5.5 ChatGPT?
Right, but why did the U.S. government?
Please,
it doesn't make sense as the next question.
The difference between the ChatGPT 5.5 and all Anthropic models is that Anthropic is much better at instructional prevention. Like, okay, one of the things that
wait, before you get into this, hold on, hold on. Is ChatGPT and Anthropic, is that the same company?
No.
Okay, wait. Hold on, wait. Okay, shut the fuck up. Okay, I think what he was asking was if this is a punishment to Anthropic, why didn't they just ban the last model? Why would they wait for the new one and then ban this one?
They're not technically comparable in terms of like the cybersecurity.
No. Okay. What he's saying is that if you're challenged to his point, if you're trying to say that the government is doing this to punish Anthropic, he's asking, well, why didn't they just ban the last model? If you're going to say, well, the last one wasn't as scary or whatever, well, then it seems like now you've shifted for the rationale for why the government might have banned this one. That's what he's saying. Yes?
Sure, I guess, but the whole thing is that they're assuming that this Anthropic model is just as good as 5.5. I've heard this said over and over and over and over again, and it's just not true. It's not. They're looking at cyber in this like one-dimensional space where it's like, okay, can Anthropic break everything? That's not the point. Anthropic is able to give very good instructions to anybody who ever wants to do cyber to exploit things. They have much larger context windows. They're able to be exploited of their intellectual property easier. This is just true of all Claude models. There are multiple, there are multiple studies backing this, right?
Half of the things you're saying are really, really true.
Isn't that just what I said earlier about
that? So I just want to be clear about that.
Isn't that just what I said earlier about the uneven distribution and gains per model?
Yeah, it's a jagged frontier. There are different things. For example, on agentic behavior and tool calling, it's not better. On sub-agent orchestration, it is. Your overall point of it has weird jagged edges and it is a better model is true, but the nuances of what you're saying, you're getting a few things off.
When we're speaking about cybersecurity, we are mostly speaking about exploit and vulnerability benchmarks or capabilities or attack capabilities or like modeling any kind of capture the flag task, no?
No, I mean, that's...
No.
It's a lot bigger than that. Like, for example, you have to remember that like across the enterprise industry, there is lots of different applications of their specific like cybersecurity like area. I'm not a cybersecurity expert, but like I've spoken to people that are, and I don't take much information from them in terms of like their work, but like there is a different like perspective from all of them. They like your Anthropic isn't going to affect like a bank the same way it's going to affect a grocery store. Like obviously they all use like they might all use B2B software like Oracle, or they might use B2B software or like cloud software, but there's individual chains across those things, like for example administration software. Like there's lots of different companies that do that, and you cannot address this through like a benchmark. It just doesn't work like that way. So for example, Anthropic might come out with a new model that has a capability to target a certain thing a lot better, and you cannot see this in the benchmarks, and a lot of the time you can't. A lot of the benefits from, as I said before, a lot of the benefits from like 4.7 to and 4.6, there was actually quite a lot that you could not see in the benchmarks.
Wait, what you're saying
is
true, but by the way,
5.4.
hold on, sorry. What you're saying is very true. I agree with you. But by the way, on the benchmarks, which are still reliable for parts of use cases, and again, when we're talking about cybersecurity, Mythos and Fable are significantly better than 4.8, 5.5. So I don't even know, we don't need to move beyond the benchmarks to go to intuition. This is tremendously true already on all agentic coding, cybersecurity benchmarks that exist. those models outperform even 5.5. I prefer 5.5 in the Codex harness, but like this is a true thing. This is, and again, on long-running tasks, sub-agent orchestration, where you're going to get kind of weird cybersecurity outweighs. It is a better model. So I don't know why we have to move away from benchmarks. They tell us it's state of the art at cybersecurity.
Can I just ask you real quick, what benchmarks?
Yeah, sorry, that is a good question.
Look, okay, I'm putting the system card. I'm putting the system card in chat. Go look at the chat.
Yeah. Wait, which
exploit bench? You have a health bench. You have a bunch of the agentic coding benchmarks. Again, I don't believe the benchmarks are the right way to evaluate end use for most general consumers. I think 5.5 in most harnesses is going to be better for users than any Claude model in any harness. However, for cybersecurity, for health, for long-running sub-agent orchestration, it is a better model than 5.5. It's a better model than 4.8.
Which chat?
Mythos or Fable?
Chat.
Oh,
No,
sorry.
put it in DGG.
My bad. Yep.
Okay.
Here, I'll relink for you.
Ooh.
What is this? What do these percentages mean? 80.3.
So basically, yeah, every benchmark is going to evaluate your pass or fail rate on, kind of either a success or failure binary, or it'll be like human engineers who will approve a PR. So basically, like, okay, it wrote code, did a human engineer or an LLM as a judge say this was good enough? And so it's like a rate of passing. And so saturation, someone brought this up earlier, like you don't expect a new model to do 100% of anything. You expect it to improve on prior models until, new benchmark needs to be created, because all the modern models will have like saturated, as in completed at near 100% or 100% of the we can consider puzzles in a given bench.
Idiot.
What do you mean when you say bench? Like in general, what is a benchmark for you?
Yeah, you said harm bench and whatnot. This is
Oh
Claude.
my god, I'm getting trolled.
Your mic is really fucked, mate.
Your power cable is sitting on something.
When you say what is a benchmark, you take a bunch of models, or your model, against either an open source or proprietary or third-party set of problems. So this could be coding problems. This could be a challenge in a code base. This could be legal questions. This could be vision questions where you show it images and ask it for descriptions. Then you have some sort of rubric. That could be an LLM as a judge or a human as a judge, many humans as a judge. In the case of GDP-Val, it's like a council of humans in their functional area as judges. You then evaluate the model's answers against your rubric, and you come up with a score. That's what a benchmark is. Some of these benchmarks, again, are third-party. Some of them are audited. Some of them are run by the companies themselves. And so we can evaluate, especially on a relative basis, because, again, sometimes they don't represent how we might feel these models. But we can evaluate the strength and the relative strength of these models using these benchmarks fairly directionally accurately.
Okay.
Especially when we see big leaps, by the way, right? So cybersecurity, as an example, in this security card, exploit bench goes from 34 and 40% in the case of Sana and Opus models to 69 and 78% in Mythos and Fable models.
From 60, did you say from 69 to 78?
34 and 40 in Opus and Sana and GPT 5.5.
Okay.
To 69
no,
and
I'm sorry, I'm having
78%.
them in front of me. Sorry, I have them in front of me, and I'm just listening. No, totally fine. I just wanted to know what you say when you say the benchmarks, because like we had this conversation earlier. There are no the benchmarks. We need to be really explicit what kind of benchmarks we look at, and the benchmark for cybersecurity is exploit bench. There are 1,000 other
Okay, hold on. I'm
things
sorry,
that we
real
could
quick,
look
just
at,
because
but
I just as speaking as a fucking layman from the PC world, when you say the benchmarks for cybersecurity or whatever the benchmark tests are for cybersecurity, is that really true, or are the big actual benchmarks, like real life benchmarks, going to be like when an AI comes out that can use like a novel approach to problem solving that would never even be captured by an older benchmark that would probably just show incremental improvements on problems that we are already identified? So like, let's say there's like a way to discover an exploit and you can benchmark a bunch of AIs and they get faster and faster, but then a new AI comes out and it finds out that if you order Dairy Queen for the guy that runs the fucking company, that you can always break in. There would be no way to capture like that novel behavior in an old benchmark, no?
That is somewhat true.
Yeah, benchmarks are almost always future-facing in terms of like having harder problems than current.
They change all the time what
resolve.
people focus on. Like in the financial industry, for example, they'll literally talk about one benchmark for like 3 months and then the next one, and everyone has the cognitive dissonance that it's like, oh yeah, we were literally talking about a different one 3 months ago, and now we care about a new one, and it just sorts of like confirmation bias. Like a lot of these things are important in some way, like a general trend, but they are not important model for model, in my opinion.
Stephen, that often happens is they can be gamed accidentally or intentionally, and so this is when some of the data set or the answers or the discussion leaks into the training data. And you can try to control for this for a variety of ways, but it can be difficult where you don't want the model to have any exposure to the types of problems, or you at least want to normalize for that, which can ruin the efficacy. But again, by the way, I'd point out, even on these benchmarks that we have, it's higher on things that are, kind of the intuitive belief of the cybersecurity space and kind of in platform in general. People also feel that their capability is not represented in the benchmarks, but in both cases, Mythos and Fable should be considered a step ahead. It's our intuition and benchmarks align for the first time in a long time.
That is true when you look at the system card. I literally have the AISI that I spoke about earlier in front of me, where 5.5 is better. I have the Psi leaderboard in front of me, to be fair, which only goes towards Mythos Preview, but the improvement between Opus 4.7 and Mythos Preview is like 3%. And that's HTTP AI doesn't have Mythos yet, but I have like those three in front of me, and in one there's a big improvement, in the other one, like coincidentally, who are third party, there's not.
I just want to establish something. I don't think this model is that much more dangerous, right? So like the thing that we have to ask ourselves is your claim about them using this as a marketing moment true? And that's where I'm going, it's clearly false. If you're asking me, oh, should we be more concerned? No, I think that, someone showed someone in the admin a stupid jailbreak, which is basically, prompt, and scared them because it's something they probably hadn't seen before. That's what happened with the admin, probably based on what we know so far. It does not appear to be the case that anything that was demonstrated was extreme. It was a simple jailbreak, non-universal in its nature. However, this doesn't mean that you have some claim where you can go back, kind of backwards and say, therefore they were doing this for marketing for the IPO, and this whole thing is a sandbag.
I've actually used the Mythos model. Like I'm in the glass whatever. I'm in a company working for cybersecurity as a tier 2. I've used Mythos uncensored, unlimited. It is significantly better in engagement. Benchmarks don't mean shit. Like real life application, that's what matters, and it is significantly better.
It might be, but we need some kind of systematic tests to demonstrate this.
We have a variety of benchmarks. We have people's intuitions. These are not perfectly measurable. And you saying it might be over and over when presented with system cards, intuition, and an expert's opinion, and then you go, it still might be marketing.
I literally just cited you 2 different benchmarks that show the opposite.
Right, but benchmarks are not universal. That's why we have a variety of them, a suite of benchmarks in every category. Individual benchmarks are not universal. These are a set of challenges, so you need a variety of benchmarks to triangulate an entire function. Several benchmarks have shown it ahead. Intuition has shown it ahead. Usage has shown it ahead. People have desired this model in a different way. We've seen the response to this model. Why in the world would you go, okay, well, a couple benchmarks say, maybe not on these sets of problems, therefore, it means they're sandbagging for the sake of an IPO. Again, it doesn't make sense.
Are you basing this solely on the system card?
No, I'm not basing it. I've used Fable, first of all, and I'm basing it on, we just heard an expert's opinion. I read other people talk about Mythos and Fable from a cybersecurity perspective. I'm basing it on a triangulation of the world, as opposed to just, well, there's a possibility that I feel because, the weather told me that, Dario wanted to market this harder because his cost was hard.
No,
where Mythos really shines is the ease of use. To actually create a full exploit chain with Mythos, you simply install the Claude CLI and give it this prompt: "Hey, find me exploits," and include a GitHub link, and there it goes. It finds it. It finds entire chains. It's able to make the entire exploit chains. During engagements, like Red Team engagements, we have used Mythos, so that's the uncensored model. That's not Fable. Fable is what normal people have. Mythos, it's only for the glass whatever group.
Glasswing.
There's Glasswing, and they have 2 tiers. They have like the big companies like Google or Amazon, but they also have second tier, and that's where the consulting companies are. And the company that I work for actually arranged access, and it is literally fire it off, come back in a half an hour or in a day, and ta-da, you got an entire exploit chain. We've used it to gain root on many engagements already.
I'm not saying, okay, listen, it might be that in like half a year or maybe 2 months or 1 month, all like the big studies come out, all the big comparisons come out, and I'm wrong. It might be. What I'm saying is that we can't just sit here and ask different people how much better it is and just ask their impression of the model if the model is better or not. For all I care, it might be that Mythos might be just Opus 4.7 in a different color, and the color makes people feel like that it's going faster. If I want to compare the models, I want to see a multitude of benchmarks across a multitude of platforms, ideally across third-party people, and then compare it. And the benchmarks that I am seeing that are not in the system card, which is the only thing, by the way, that was linked here, they are not that much better. And that's it. That's all I'm saying. It might be that I'm wrong. It might be that, like Metalloid said, it might be that they are saturated right now. It might also be that the kind of problems that we're going to face with Mythos will not be displayed right now. And it might be future problems. And we might, maybe some banking crashes, maybe some banking exploits, whatever. Something that we can't see in the benchmarks. But we can't see that right now. And we shouldn't base our opinion of Mythos on some potential benchmarks or some potential whatever and the intuition
benchmarks
of
are
some
in front
people
of
that are
you. There
using
are
it.
many benchmarks in front of you. You're just deciding to ignore them in favor of others. That isn't how benchmarks work. You can't look at individual. Actually, I agree with your point. You can't look at individual benchmarks. Most of these benchmarks have Fable 5 far ahead of, and especially Mythos 5, far ahead of this competition in the categories that we're discussing. You're deciding to ignore the evidence. When you look at benchmarks, if you have outlier benchmarks that tell you it's like 5.5, again, that doesn't dispute the story. You have to triangulate across a variety of these benchmarks. The variety.
I'm currently not in DGG chat. Have you linked anything else beyond the system card?
Excuse me?
I'm not in DGG chat. Have you linked anything else beyond the system card?
Have you?
Then, yes.
Send me your benchmarks.
Wait. Can I just post it in
I
Discord?
bet Mythos could tell us which one of you isn't retarded.
Wait, what did they do with the other thing?
Not me.
Like an omnipotent god would know what it feels like to suck a dick? Does Mythos know that?
Oh yeah, it does. It knows how to slobber like perfectly.
Okay, wait. So hold on. Just as a consensus here, do we all agree that that Mythos is like significantly better, even just on the benchmarks, or are we having disagreement even there?
I think the disagreement is a percentage disagreement, but the difference between the percentage of 3 or 2%, like that little percentage, could mean a difference between usable in production and usable in experiments.
Well, let's figure this out.
What I've
agree that Mythos is better?
Yeah. I don't disagree with you there. I'm just saying, just on a first thing, is there a disagreement over here about whether or not it does outperform on the benchmark? So are we disagreeing on that?
So Steven, there are a variety of benchmarks for the same category. Let's take coding as an example.
Stop. Okay, stop. Okay, I'm only half retarded, not fully retarded.
I think we do agree.
Okay, so we do agree that it does outperform on the relevant benchmarks. Yes. Okay.
Does
so
that other guy agree? Sorry, I just want to make
sure.
sure.
Yeah, neuroscience guy. Do you agree that it does outperform on the relevant benchmarks? Or is that a contentious claim right now between everybody here?
Well,
numbers go up.
Numbers go up indeed. Like most likely in regards of like the agentic coding and whatnot, it probably does outperform it. Numbers go up, yeah. It is probably better, but I wouldn't say to an extent that it is leaps and bounds ahead. I would like.
Okay, that's fine. But we do agree that it is better. Okay, and then for people that have had firsthand experience with it in this call, and then what others have reported, it does seem like there are benchmark gains, but it does seem like there are also significant real-world application gains as well. And it doesn't sound like anybody here with any experience with the model would say anything different, right?
Correct. That's correct. I'm probably the only one in the call with experience. I don't know if anybody else is part of the pre-access tiers.
With Mythos in particular, I don't have access, but Fable I do. And it's also significant.
I had Mythos access, and it's crazy. It's like Fable is basically nerfed in that you have to jailbreak it before you can do exploits. But I can just say to Mythos, I could say like, find exploits. Here's a Git. Here's the MCP of Ghidra. Go. Yeah. And I don't have to mess around with prompting for hours. It just does it.
Okay. So then what are our disagreements at this point? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, can I just a sheer curiosity? Like, what kind of level does it give you the vulnerability? Does it give you like an exploit to actually exploit the vulnerability, or like how does it work?
And code to full exploit. Let's say we have an application, and you basically do static analysis on it or dynamic analysis on it, and then it's able to find vulnerabilities, and it's able to create an entire chain. So it's able to go from exploit to exploit to exploit to eventually maybe get remote code execution or something like that. It is truly scary.
Do you have any insight into how much these kinds of tasks cost, like token-wise, or at the API end?
For me, it's because it's company pays, and the game in the business to business is if I use a tool, then yes, there's a charge for it. I never see the charge, and we just forward the charge to our clients, and an engagement can cost like 10,000 euros or something like that. So
do you know whether you're paying probably for tokens, right? You're paying as you go. You're not on a sub.
I'm not paying for shit because it's all paid by company.
Right, your company though is paying for token. They're paying for usage.
Yeah, we're paying for usage, and we just get the charge and forward it to our clients. So we actually make profit on it.
And so does Anthropic.
Wait, how does Anthropic make profit off of you?
Whether they make profit or not, the point I was making, he's paying on tokens. He's not using. It's not subsidized. If it's subsidized, it's on a structural basis, as in they know they can kind of engineer their margin. But we also have heard that on inference, none of these companies, except for the ones who are like in the 4th or 5th tier, have to do much subsidy.
Okay,
for token cost.
Okay, I want to ask a question, okay? I don't know if it's possible for me to understand this, but when you say it can build a full exploit chain, okay, it sounds to me like what you're saying that this can do is, let's say that there is a Git repository for Destiny.gg. You're saying that you could say, find me a way to access user information in the Destiny.gg database, and you could just have that as a relatively simple prompt, point it to the Git, and not only will it analyze the DGG code and look for exploits, it'll go to like libraries or other incorporated things of the code, find exploits, and even if it requires multiple exploits in succession, it will build you that chain from start to finish so that by the time it's done doing its thing, it can say, if you want to access the DGG backend and go to the accounts, here are all the things that you need to do, and it'll figure all that out, correct?
If there is a vulnerability that leads to that level of access, it will find it.
Okay, and then my question is,
and
so could the prior model
chain and everything?
Yeah, so the prior model, could it not do that at all, or did it just need more specific prompting, or what was it? What's the difference between that and like the?
This is where
it needed more work. It's.
The way to think about it, and feel free to, I know you have the direct experience with Mythos, so the way to think about it is the orchestration required. So if that primary model has to go for a long horizon task, so it has to hold the original goal for, let's say, 3 hours, or it has to spin up sub-agents to investigate a very large portion of the code base so the main model doesn't have to digest all of that information. If it has to, again, after a first pass, it finds an initial portion of the exploit, but then plan for 3 other passes based on what it first discovered. That is the sort of stuff that, again, Mythos or Fable, and even, again, 5.5 compared to older OpenAI models, all do better. This is the thing that we're seeing a lot of progress on from all of these models.
Yeah, it makes it so much easier. Like, you don't have to build a harness or anything, because Anthropic on the Claude AI website, if you're in one of the programs, you can just type in claude.ai/security, and there's your security thing. You put your gits in there, and off you go. You can do it from terminal with a simple one-liner prompt. It is so simple that if you look around, you see that people that have had access to it, they are able to do crazy shit. One of my colleagues, for example, spinned up during a CTF. It spun up 300 instances to search for vulnerabilities, like 300 sub-agents at the same time. And it found a bunch. It found like 50 different vulnerabilities.
Do you perhaps have any way to compare, like, for one, how older models would perform here, and for two, how many vulnerabilities in total are in the model? Because I do agree that it sounds like very impressive if it finds 50 vulnerabilities, but if those are like 50 from 1,000 or 50 from 2,000, that's a lot of a different story.
It's not vulnerabilities like what it does really well. As the low-level guy on the YouTube video also said, it does coding really well, and because it does coding really well, you can just ask it, "Hey, find the vulnerabilities." It's analyzing code mainly, and it's comparative to other models. Other models you have to coerce more. You have to make your own harness for it. It just requires more effort.
Can I ask a quick retard question? Yeah. When you say create a harness, are you talking about building kind of like a specific prompt wraparound kind of that you can plug this in that has to be more specific per thing? So like you would build a harness to investigate like a particular type of application, or what do you mean by harness?
Harness, for example, if you want to analyze web applications, then a harness could be an interface to a browser, basically. It's an
okay. So a harness is like having like an automatically larger prompt that you're kind of like adding every time to keep it more.
It's not prompt. It's not a prompt. It's a program. It's basically like from standard. Most of the models are not able to access the internet. So you have to feed the model data from the internet. So you make a piece of code in Python, and that pulls a website in and all JavaScript on it, and that gets fed into the model.
So okay. Wait, why? I thought when they
hold on. Sorry, like if you hear harness, it's like an agent.
So, okay, wait, yeah, wait. I thought for example, don't harnesses. Well, here I thought harness. Yeah. Aren't they all like agentic now, or is that not true?
Yeah, that's true. So basically, even ChatGPT is a harness, or if you use Codex, that's basically the same models from OpenAI that you go on ChatGPT with, but you're using that in a coding application, either in your command line or on your computer. Claude Code is Claude's version of a harness. This is basically an application surrounding any model. So you can use the same model in different harnesses. The harness gives it an environment, so like is it running on a server and a computer, a set of instructions. So for example, a web harness is going to be more focused on reasoning or talking to you, but a coding harness that an engineer might use is going to be encouraged to think about engineering principles and doing code review. And then it'll also give it tools. So for example, ChatGPT as a harness will have certain search tools for browsing the web, fetching pages, but then, again, a Codex or a Claude Code for an engineer is going to have more tools to, kind of sprawl through larger code bases. Or if you're using it in a development environment, it'll have more tools that, again, these are written by the engineers in question who build the harness. Think of it like a wrapper so that it's more effective at particular tasks.
Okay, and then this is a dumb question.
Models at the center.
Dumb question, but when we talk about these models are finding exploits, I imagine you mean that they're like finding novel ways to exploit these code bases. They're not just like comparing these to lists of other exploits and trying to build them. Although I guess they could, but you're mainly talking about novel. Okay, have there been any like
as an example?
Go ahead.
As an example, the FFmpeg, we all know it. You use it.
Yeah. Good one.
FFmpeg.
Or wait, I'm sorry, your internet.
Oh shit! Yeah, Thai internet. It's terrible. The FFmpeg encoding tool, you use it a lot in OBS. The Mythos model found 21 new exploits in it last week that were not discovered yet.
Okay, that was going to be my next question: is are there large projects that have public repositories that these tools are finding exploits in that people are able to patch? Okay, so that's the directly scary thing: is that these could be available to people, and depending on the exploit, sometimes even a single 0 day could be invaluable for compromising a ton of information. But the idea that people could be running these across all GitHub repos or all projects and finding tons of exploits that they could now abuse is pretty spooky.
That's right. And
do we have any information on how big they are?
Lyft and enterprise companies talking about this as well. And I know that the other guy is going to say something like, is there any evidence that this harness or this agent or this model is better than prior versions? There is this like behavioral thing that happens. So for example, right now, behaviorally, because of the marketing around Mythos, is it true that companies could have done as much either exploitation and or kind of prevention and cybersecurity work with, let's say, Codex and 5.5 or Opus 4.8 beforehand without needing to wait for Mythos and Fable? And somewhat true, this has caused a behavioral change. However, everyone is also reporting that the requirements, again, in kind of prompting and an engineer having to supervise and in how capable it is at long-running tasks, which is really important as a dynamic of this, or orchestrating sub-agents, all of that is still increased massively. It's both. This has caused a behavioral change where everyone's paying attention and doing things, and everyone is also reporting a significant step up in comparison to prior model harness combinations.
The question.
The Trump ban, by the way, will do nothing. Like, just so everybody knows, the Trump ban will do jack shit, because it is very easy for any third party to clone an AI. It's really easy. They have a term for it, distilling.
That's not true.
No, that's
I don't know. Yeah, if that were true, China wouldn't be like 6 to 12 months behind of all the
You
US
realize
models.
you have to have access to the AI to be able to distill it, right? You can't just like
Distillations
copy and
are-
paste it.
Until they basically killed the access, they could have done distilling. So models are like, it's not the software, it's the data
models
center.
are even
Well,
top
for
10
one,
right now.
Anthropic can generally detect if you're doing stuff if you're using it on such a scale with the kind of variety of prompts required for distilling, but also distilling is not going to get you stuff that's restricted out of the model. So you'd only be distilling off Fable, which is the restrictive model and doesn't have the cybersecurity stuff allowed.
Yeah, like that's one of the reasons why they limited Mythos, because it is actually scary what it can do. Like, that's why Fable is just like, yeah, that's for normies, and Mythos, that's for the companies that they vetted.
As much as people say a lot about Mythos, it's not the first model to have restricted cyber capabilities. There's cyber variants of the a bunch of the GPT family of models from OpenAI, like GPT 5.4 Cyber, and I think 5.5 Cyber is supposedly coming.
There's
at some
also
point,
the
but-
$100 ones, the $100 per prompt ones were also
Llama,
cyber restricted.
But yeah, speaking to Makuta real quick, when Rugal was talking about it being able to just give a full exploit chain, when you're speaking about like prior models, that was something that Claude had an advantage over other models in. It was just so much better at taking a massive chain of things and then error handling. It was just better in all ways of that, of having someone new to cybersecurity trying to rebuild an exploit from the ground up. It was just the better model.
No, listen, absolutely. Like I said, it might be that like in 2 months, the big whatnot comes out, and I'm proven wrong. But we're always speaking about
now. You're proven wrong. We don't need to wait 2 months. We don't need to wait 2 months.
You could also let me finish and like let me hear my sentence, and perhaps the end of my sentence will say something different
No,
from the
your
beginning of my
sentence will
sentence.
not tell me that we don't already know
Let
the
him
things we
finish.
already know.
Okay. Anyway,
I'm a next token predictor, and I've predicted the next tokens in your sentence, and they haven't changed my mind.
Cool story, bro. If we speak about exploits, I would like to know what kind of exploits they are. They are like, whenever we say an exploit, of course, like there's a chain to actually exploit a certain vulnerability, but like to what extent? Is this like a query that we send to SQL, and the SQL query could have like some input outside of the range, or is it like a genuinely game-breaking thing where we could like decrypt user data or find a way to get access to the user data? There's like a massive difference between like one and the other. And just saying, well, it is impressive to find 21 new exploits. I'm not denying that, but I would like to know to what extent, like what kind of exploits are those?
Well, I think as
I have an example for you.
before getting into like, even if it's an irrelevant exploit, though, I feel like, one, it would be nice to have something that could find these, because normal people probably wouldn't look for irrelevant exploits, because two, there might be some future implementation of some other thing where that exploit now becomes something that can give you access to data because it's thought to be safe or secure, and then it's, injected in some part of like what people thought was like some safe pipeline, and now you have like an access to a ton of data because of an exploit that nobody else would have even known about, right?
Yeah, it's also like this. The level of exploits doesn't like it matters somewhat, but it's not really important to like the justification conversation, because at the end of the day, as I said before, you're talking about human rationalities, and like if the people from these companies see something that makes them think it's going in this direction or it could be like this, then they're going to lobby for it. And like it's not like they're not going to wait for things to break to be like, oh, hold on, bro, it's like we got to stop. Like it's going to okay, wait, hang on. We're people who manage security risk for a living. If this looks like it's going to like maybe have a chance, then we're going to tell the government, be like, yo, bro, this could potentially fuck up the banking system, like, which is maybe a bit important to like be like, oh yeah, well, is this gonna be a thing? So like it does, you can talk about the end of the day like all the time. This is why the arguments are kind of got spread off really badly. Like you can talk about like the capability of AI across so many different ranges, but at the end of the day, it's about how humans perceive the AI, right? And then that will justify their decisions, right? Obviously, if it blows up the world, they're gonna be like, oh, it's gonna blow up the world, but yeah.
Not only that, I linked it in chat. Anthropic posted the Glasswing thing. You're going to say this is all marketing, but it's not. We see this from a variety of things. I feel like you're just not paying attention. So Cloudflare found 2,000 bugs, 400 high critical severity. Mozilla found and fixed 271 vulnerabilities in Firefox. UK's AI Security Institute reports that it was the first model to solve both of their cyber ranges, which are simulations of multi-step cyber attacks end to end. You're just not paying attention. And again,
those numbers alone. No, stop.
You can suggest,
those numbers alone
that
mean
those are
nothing
just trivial.
without
Yes,
a
you can suggest that they're
comparison.
just trivial, but you do not have any notion that you've throughout this, you have not proven to me that you've been paying attention such that you have a counterfactual claim here. Companies are coming out and saying this is super important. Palo Alto Networks is also, and Microsoft has also said the same thing about Mythos. It just doesn't make sense. All of these companies are out saying the same thing. The benchmarks are indicating something. People are telling you something. You're going, yeah, but what if it's like the same as all the other ones?
For number one,
I like
still,
the
you only
rating.
provided real quick, just you only provided the system card for the benchmarks, just to keep that in mind.
Provided
Number
another
two,
link with a Project Glasswing update.
the singular
I put in another link
numbers
in DGG
mean
chat with the Project
nothing.
Glasswing update.
This singular numbers mean
I didn't give you
nothing
singular
if
numbers. These are
don't have-
companies that are
Yes,
critical.
you-
Cloudflare and Palo Alto Networks to you are not significant companies. Microsoft, Oracle,
What
these
do
are
you
infrastructure
think- what do you
companies that
think I'm
power
saying?
all of what we do. What are you talking about?
What do you think I'm saying when I say singular numbers?
No, I think we need a bit of context definition, because what I'm feeling here is that it's a misunderstanding of what high and critical mean in cybersecurity. High and critical vulnerabilities are actual huge, as in that's company destroying, that is country destroying. The NotPetya bug, it was a critical vulnerability. Like it, the level that is assigned, the risk levels that are assigned to vulnerabilities or exploits is a huge thing. If the moment that you hear high or critical, your alarm bell should be going off. Like I can bet you that within cybersecurity departments that are on the blue team, defensive side, they are panicking in their socks when they hear
absolutely.
highs or criticals.
Just to hedge the question here, you were speaking about 21 vulnerabilities earlier. Were those high? Okay, thank you. That is all I wanted to know.
Also, we also spoke of 271 and 1,200. Like it's not just 121 or 27. There are thousands of vulnerabilities being patched. I also just put out Frontier Code, which is from Cognition, a third party that builds their own agentic harness for coding, and their Diamond data set in Frontier Code, their new benchmark. It is more than double, or about double, GPT 5.5, and more than double Opus 4.7 on their hardest problems. Again, third parties, the company themselves, the company's enterprise partners who focus on cybersecurity are all telling you the same thing. Again, I put the link in DGG. Go check it out. Everyone's telling you the same thing, except you have a feeling that it might be the same as prior models.
Well, if you don't mind me, Makuta, one of the things I'd like to stress about and the novelty of it is that, you know, as someone in like cybersecurity, one of the most frustrating things you'll see is like a Jira or an admin portal that's totally secured, because in some way you know that if you could get into that portal, you could propagate it to a lot more other things. Claude, it has that novelty as well. The Claude model beforehand was able to find a critical vulnerability, say, let me hold on to this for a second so that I can see the other things that I'm now authorized to find critical vulnerabilities. This isn't just Mythos scanning like a front page. This is it worming its way through the infrastructure. You know what I mean?
No, listen, I totally get that. The point that I was trying to make is that if we look at most outlets, if we look at most benchmarks, we usually don't differentiate between is there an exploit or is there an actual vulnerability. And when I ask, I would just like to know to what extent are the vulnerabilities, how far can they go, and how critical are they? Because oftentimes when you look at AI reporting, you see, oh, big scary exploit, and then it's like a query or something. And I know we drift towards, well, it's the perception that matters, and it does.
Well, wait, hold on, wait. I don't think it's
yeah?
I don't think it's about the perception. I don't think that matters. I think it's more the capability. So, like, if it were to find an exploit where it was able to, let's say that it found an exploit scraping passwords or something from some admin email, it sounds like an older model might just report back and go, look, we found that you can access an email address. But it sounds like the newer one will hold on to that exploit, investigate a little bit further, find out that not only can I get into the email, but I can also get this information that also gives me access to this and this and this and this. And even if ultimately the only thing you got was like an entire Outlook thing compromised from some company, like even if that was a small thing for that particular company, just like the ability to chain these attacks and to hold on to information and everything, that's noteworthy in and of itself, or apparently novel in and of itself.
All exploits are important. Like you can like you mentioned earlier, Destiny. Like if you do one thing, like you can combine it with another thing, and it turns out to be like a really
sure. Nobody
big,
disagrees
like,
with this, yeah. But I'm just saying that there's like it seems like the behavior that it can exhibit here to hold on to things or investigate things more could be.
And the way that these models can orchestrate is now differentiated. We saw this end of 2025 to now in 2026. This is some of the primary way in which we're actually getting the gains, whether it's cybersecurity or productivity gains. That's exactly right. It's not just the prompt response that we're used to. It's agents in a harness and then orchestration of a long horizon task. That's right.
Yeah, and then like solo hackers, for example, are like solo. Back then, like in Bug Bounty, if you're familiar with Bug Bounty, you'd have a lot of solo researchers who would find something of an admin portal, and then they'd report it back due to code of conduct stuff. And then before the report would get resolved and they'd get their money, most of these people, especially if they were more professional, they would say, hey, is it actually okay if I do a little more digging? These companies would almost 99% of the time say, no. And now these models are able to break through that shield that they once had. And it's rocking these companies. Like you said, Cloudflare finding 2,000. I mean, I have a good question for you. Do you think like the majority of it was on public infrastructure? Fuck no. It was dev servers that the developers were using when they were yeah, that's all. That's the novelty.
Yeah, like even if you just find one high or critical or something in an application, or just mediums or lows, the chaining is the really powerful thing, because you can go from a low vulnerability to medium and then eventually escalate to system admin through some pathway. It's pretty scary what can be done with cloud.
True.
Yeah. And then just one more thing. Claude was also, and these are on the models prior, when I say it was good at giving instructions. The difference in between ChatGPT building an exploit log back then, models like 5.1, is that it would tell you, paste this curl or whatever into your browser. Claude would just be like, here's how you boot up an entire Linux machine and you port it to MSF. Here's the right commands for Metasploit. Here's how you use Jack the Ripper. And it just gives you this one line of code. And even with error solving, I think there was this research paper that I read a while ago that specifically focused on building a machine to use meta exploit. And Claude was able to do it, I believe, in I can't remember exactly how they gauged instructional steps, but it was somewhere around 10 instructional steps with one error, and ChatGPT was somewhere around 20 instructional steps with 4 errors. So it's always been, it's excelled at this.
Well, in that case, do you think that the next, 5.6, perhaps ChatGPT 6 will also be banned? What is the path going forward? Will this hit only Anthropic?
No, I don't think it'll be only Anthropic. I think one of the bigger things that is stopping ChatGPT from being as big as Claude. Well, of course, these people have different reasons for building their AI. ChatGPT has never sold itself as a cybersecurity AI, right? This is something that's way better at day-to-day tasks, and that's what it's good. And it excels, and it used to excel against Anthropic in a lot of those areas as well. But one of the bigger things that's stopping ChatGPT, I think, is context windows and whatnot. It just can't scale as properly. But I'm sure there's some people in here that disagree with me, and that's like a whole nother thing.
Let's be real, right? It's literally because the government hates Anthropic. Literally, Pete Hegseth is literally tweeting out like, "Yo, see, we departner with Anthropic because you know, they don't want to work with us, and now look at them today." Like, come on, man, it's so obvious.
Damn.
That's just a quote from Hegseth because they know that this will actually impact the AI bubble pretty heavily. Because the writing is indeed on the wall. If Cloud is able to do it today, the other big models are able to do it tomorrow. And in a month or 6, we have Quen and Chinese models, or Mistral, the French model, being able to do it. And shortly after that, you'll have models that you can run at home that are able to do it.
Look,
It's
Hillary
Pandora's
was cooking
box kind
with
of
her-
thing.
Yeah, Hillary was cooking with her private email server. Okay, like
Queen.
There's also just like there's a whole bunch of things right now that are coming together, especially in like computer science, that we've kind of pushed aside. The abstraction of like so many different computer science libraries, like the top 5 npm packages can do everything you want and more, and the fact that you just need one worm in them to infect 90% of software that exists now, that's something that like we kind of, I don't want to say we failed to see, because I mean honestly, how could you see this coming? But like that's the massive issue, is that once we find vulnerabilities in OAuth, for example, that's your website, Destiny, like that's a package that uses 1,000 other packages that are third-party softwares that are deprecated from fucking 2015, right? It's just that where we don't have the human capacity, or we beforehand we didn't really have the reason to audit all of these things so viciously, and now AI can just do it for us. So you're going to see a lot of things resurface, like the FFmpeg vulnerability. FFmpeg has had multiple critical vulnerabilities done on it by solo researchers, right? But it affects just so many libraries. This is every
I feel like
decoding thing.
I feel like, so I again, retard. I am.
We're all retards, mate.
I kind of wonder. No, what? I wasn't calling you retard. I kind of wonder if the new vulnerabilities that would be really worrisome would be for newly deployed code that is made by some of the AI things, because I don't know how much time people spent looking for vulnerabilities for that. I feel like when you're talking about things like OAuth, or you're talking about things like these are like fundamental systems that I'm sure everybody on the planet, is creaming for different types of vulnerabilities for. I'm sure this is probably some of the safer, more foundational stuff.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, that's the scary thing.
Hold on, wait. Don't stop. Hold on. I hate it when engineers do this. You'd be surprised. No, motherfucker. I know for a fact that anybody on the planet would kill their entire family for some kind of zero-day exploit on OAuth. Are you going to tell me that the most widely adopted software norms are not some of the most secure, and because more people are using them, are red teaming them, and are trying to find vulnerabilities on them? Is that like that true as a rule of thumb?
You're generally
but
right.
all it takes is one exploit, and these things do happen at like
I'm sure. I understand. Yes, it can happen. Sure.
Like,
Yes.
there was, I believe, was it OpenSSH or OpenSSL? One of those was had a pretty significant issue.
I don't understand where this is coming from. Yes, as a rule of thumb, the most widely adopted software used by the most people tends to be the most like security audited. I don't know why you would ever argue against this point. This, as a rule of thumb,
yeah, that's completely.
Jesus, I hate all of you.
It's completely correct. The really scary part becomes the really scary part is basically that even in well-known packages like FFmpeg, the AI is able to find stuff. That is the actual scary part, because that package is looked at by 1 billion people.
So
that sounds scary. Yes,
that'll be complex. One is the economic incentive. Obviously, we'll have a lot of people attacking some of these systems that you're talking about. Now, again, to your point, they'll have the most resources protecting them. So there's a question as to like, okay, if you have a tremendous amount, we haven't even seen some of the things that are going to be like modern DDoS, right? It's like, okay, right now we're finding vulnerabilities in code bases. Cybersecurity has a variety of vectors you can go down, and so like that portion, I think, highly targeted infrastructure is going to be kind of challenged by the volume of people going after them. The second, to your point about like, okay, is new code more vulnerable? There's like 2 types of new code you can think about. New applications, people quote unquote vibe coding stuff, that isn't as like deployed and being as used as widely. So there's one category of stuff that just like isn't as interesting to be targeted, or you're right, will be targeted and be harmed by cybersecurity stuff. But the other is like new code by engineers at these companies themselves. And then the question that's kind of interesting is net new code in the kind of AI generated code era better or worse? And it depends obviously on a bunch of variety of practices inside engineering organizations. But there's an argument that some orgs might actually be delivering more resilient code, and some might not, just dependent again on exactly kind of what are they using, how are they using it, how senior is their team. But your general intuition is correct, but again, it might have some weird effects on volume, and again, how senior your engineering team is using these tools.
Sure, but I also think, because I don't hear this brought up that much, when you talk about like how resilient is code, what do you think? What are you talking about there?
How resilient? How like when you are deploying net new features or infrastructure, the question is often either infrastructure, or if you're talking about DevOps or like your cloud, or if you're talking about the code itself, as in the application running on your browser, the process by which code review happens. Again, senior engineers think about the architecture of a platform. All of that matters a tremendous amount. And so again, if you're like a senior engineering team and you're using AI generated code, then you might actually have pretty resilient builds. If you're a junior engineering team and you're like, oh, my PM wanted this feature yesterday for kind of making login more convenient or for onboarding, that person using AI generated code who's not looking at what they're producing and doesn't have a senior engineer as part of their process, that might be a risk. Again, not going to happen.
Okay, so I think one of the, I guess like a question, and I don't know if we ever end up in a horrible world like this, is that like when you talk about like robust code, resilient code that functions well, I feel like sometimes I feel like when I listen to people talk about it, they talk about it way too much from like an objective like engineering perspective and not enough engagement with like the cost. Like if you were to ask like which code is better, and then I show you two code bases and like one is meticulously upkept and everything is documented and it's scalable and blah, blah, blah. And then I show you like another piece of shit code base, but like the first one requires, 20 engineers over 3 years to make. And then the second one is vibe coded. Like even if the second one is dog shit, but like the revenue generation is high, like it might just be worth it to pay people to patch problems or to even deal with customer issues at some point. I feel like that cost factor is an important one. Is that never considered? Because like, could we not wind up in a world where you get code that is like, when we think of code being better or worse, like it's always a function of like time and money, and there's a third thing there. But like if somebody's willing to just skip out on the money because you save so much cost on using the AI shit, you could just end up with worse code, but it's like it makes sense to do the worst code because you could just patch it with fucking whatever AI shit.
Yeah, there's three layers to that. One is there are a lot of infrastructure companies that are now focused on this, right? So like if you're a smaller team, you're like a startup that is kind of building for the first time, you're going to rely on companies like Cloudflare, Vercel, et cetera. You're basically outsourcing a tremendous amount of Supabase on the database side. You're outsourcing some of this expertise to them and building less of that functionality core to your application. That's one dynamic. The second, to your point about like, what are we talking about when we talk about like resilient code, which is we can call good code as a shortcut.
Sure. Yes. I was saying a little tongue in cheek. I understand what you're saying. Sometimes I wonder, like, people always think that like the best code is like the best code, when in reality, like cost is a huge function of.
But I think this dynamic is going to show itself in kind of like new businesses. Maybe in 2 years, we're going to be in a place where new businesses are not shipping that much to users because a lot of these people are either founders or vibe, again, quote unquote, vibe coders or whatever you want to call them. That those people are not getting a lot of adoption yet. I think this will be real in maybe 2 years. But the thing that is real now is we are getting a lot of AI generated code actually at our at scale companies, because again, these folks already have customers, know what they need to build to get kind of value, and so that's where maybe the risks will show up in the next 1-2 years. Your kind of point about the incentives will actually cause a tremendous amount of applications, therefore people are going to be interfacing with insecure applications that are built by immature teams. That's probably 1 or 2 years out, and we may have, other solutions, again, around what infrastructure providers do, so that if, again, you're a 4-person team and you're deploying on Vercel or Cloudflare, like, again, you might be able to outsource a lot of that thinking and that architecture to those companies in that world where they're spending all of their time figuring out how to, like, create a layer that you can use, and you and your application can no longer compete. You should not do, like, there's two movements right now, like, especially with what's going on with some of the package managers. It's like, do we start to like no longer depend on third-party code, third-party libraries and packages? And it's like, no, if you build everything yourself, A, obviously that's tremendously difficult. B, you might build it poorly versus the people who are obviously obsessed with that problem on a day-to-day basis.
Sure.
Yeah, and don't forget this golden rule. there's a golden rule when it comes down to coding and cybersecurity, and any application in cybersecurity. Basically, like cybersecurity is the afterthought. There's so many times that I've had engagements where the go live is in a week, and they aren't allowed to have medium or high higher findings, and they get pissed off at you because you find a medium or a high because it's gonna cost them a lot of money, or they're gonna have to delay the launch and that kind of stuff. Like cybersecurity has always been not just by developers but also by the budgets part, the hindsight.
Sure.
I think you're worried.
I don't know if I really have to say this to like anybody in the chat, but like, or sorry, anybody in this VC. But the amount of vulnerabilities that come from AI generated code is like 1-to-1 to the amount that you give it in the training data, the amount that real coders actually provide. ChatGPT 5.1, I think, the GitHub repository rate for vulnerabilities, and when it actually reproduced the code like 30 times pseudo-random, these were like 1-to-1. So again, it just works off your training data. If you have a company that's like Google that it can train on, then it would
I wish it was like that.
This is not really.
Yeah, if only it were that easy. Just as a side thing, is everyone on the same page about what actually happened in terms of Mythos getting banned? Because I feel like a lot of people like listening in on this convo in chat, but also I feel like some people here possibly might get the impression that basically the government saw it was kind of scary and that maybe foreign adversaries could use it, and so they shut it down. What actually happened was you've got the Mythos model and Fable is just Mythos but with a bunch of guardrails, so it won't do stuff like biology stuff for like biotech, it won't do cybersecurity stuff. There's restrictions on what it allows you to actually ask, and it'll refuse if you ask stuff. And the supposed thing that sparked this was Fable, the restricted model. Someone had found some specific jailbreak, basically a prompt that you could give it to get around some small amount of the safeguards to allow it to do, I believe Anthropic was claiming some basic cybersecurity work that could be easily completed with other existing models, such as GPT 5.5. And due to that, supposedly, the American government said, all right, you're not allowed to provide Fable or Mythos, not even the one that you'd been previously only been, like, not even the one that you're not giving to anyone. You've got to shut that one down too for anyone who's not a foreign national. So that's just not, like, it doesn't really map it onto the cited, like, reasoning that Fable was the issue and the guardrails around Fable. But also, this was not really a thing of, oh, Mythos is too scary. It was a thing of, oh, well, we're not convinced the guardrails are good enough on Fable, the public one.
Isn't that the same thing, kind of?
There's a second, like, claim or whatever that I've seen in some articles about, like, there's a Chinese government type of company that apparently gained access to Mythos, like the unguarded version somehow. That I haven't seen anything elaborated on that, but that has been, like, part of the claim.
I'm not convinced of that, because it would be trivial for the US government to just contact Anthropic and say, hey, these are Chinese nationals, get them out of the specialized program.
Yeah, the argument is that them learning of that. The argument is that them learning of that Chinese government company getting access to Mythos is what made them want to ban it, rather than just like, oh, we heard that this jailbreak is working, and we got to shut it down.
Yeah, possibly.
Yes.
I don't believe the
it's
US
probably not the Chinese government companies, like the tier 2 people that had access to Mythos. We're talking here about big global companies, like big 4, big cybersecurity companies, big software companies. They have Chinese employees. They have branches in China or in countries in Southeast Asia, or where it might be a little bit less secure, etc. Like, that's probably what it's referring to.
Bro, if you look at the research going into AI right now, okay, that's all I'm gonna say. Just look at the authors.
They're all Chinese.
Well, they're all from Tingsua.
All of them.
Yeah, they're all Chinese.
All of them, top to bottom.
Every paper is a Zhang.
Don't
Like,
Polish folk.
Owu.
Liatal.
was going to say on the point earlier, Destiny, you made about the idea of like security not being that big of an issue. Sorry, no, I'm not trying to take the order out. Sorry. The government is what you should be worried about because it enhances them massively because it costs them huge amounts of money to teach the intellectual workers to be able to be, or like poach them from other countries to be able to teach them to do cyber warfare. But now the West is like commercializing intellectual ability to the and I think that's a massive issue that no one's really thought of in terms of like we see it in like the social media, like the idea that like as the West made like tech better and better, they've been able to destroy our kind of social infrastructure better. Now we're commercializing the kind of logical aspect of it, not the creative kind of aspect of it, or the social aspect of it. So now they're going to be able to.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I talked about earlier. It would be like, imagine if there was like for some reason there was like a new sport that was developed over the Pacific Ocean that made it like really, really awesome and cool to shoot inter or like medium range ballistic missiles. If that became like a multi-$100 billion, $1 trillion industry, the idea that there would be so much research and like private capital chasing how to make the best short range or medium range ballistic missiles would be really scary for how government actors could utilize that, because traditionally they're not really able to be that much further ahead of commercial applications, or not at all, depending on what the commercial application is. So yeah.
I think that is I don't believe the aspect. I haven't seen it, at least, and people I talk to who I trust in very high up places in terms of like how much money they're making, like the firms. I don't see many people saying no, I'm not like that. I'm just saying that like I don't hear any people that actually matter going, oh yeah, AI is going to destroy the cybersecurity industry. There is so much money, like from so much incentive for these companies to pay ridiculous amounts of money to make sure their products are safe. There's always going to be breaches, always, but like I don't think that AI is going to like just destroy the fabric of the infrastructure of the internet or like get anywhere close to that. It's probably going to be the same situation, and then the companies are just going to spend like maybe 1 to maybe 5% more of their like gross their like income on like maybe cybersecurity. I could maybe see that happening, but even then, like over time, it's stayed pretty static in terms of like the amount of spend on cybersecurity, even for the biggest firms, like the big tech companies. So I just think it's only governments that everyone should be worrying about, because yeah, at the end of the day, you have to worry about incentive, right? There's not more incentive for, hackers who are already putting huge amounts of time into breaking these places. All it's doing is enhancing them, but it's also enhancing the other side. What you are changing is you're changing the ability for these governments to be able to do more and on a wider scale. That's the only thing that's actually massively changing, and they have a massive incentive, but they weren't able to before to do these sort of things.
Sure.
I mean, maybe just to add on that, I hope I'm not repeating the point that you just made, but for a company to like sink in a few $100,000 for any kind of AI, be that Mythos, be that OpenAI, whatever, they can still iron out their flaws. If they have the blueprint, if they have access to the AI to get their software up to date and find those exploits, that is invaluable. And it is most likely valuable, a lot higher. Sorry, the value is a lot higher than the money that is spent for the tokens. What is extremely worrisome, especially with that ban, it demonstrates that the government can just shut down general access to an entire model, or perhaps to an entire country. Like, imagine you are sitting, I don't know, somewhere in California, somewhere in a startup, or maybe like in a big German firm like in SAP, and you're continuously using Mythos, or have Mythos integrated in your workflow, and now it's gone. You can't do anything.
I don't think that's worrying. I think everyone saw this coming if you weren't stuck in your head and saying, like, this is what happened with GPUs. Like, the US literally banned every country from getting them in some aspect to be able to make AI. This is what happened with every national security issue in the terms of the history. It's just that because we're on the internet now, and these things are literally, like, going across the globe in seconds, like, you can download Mythos from, where I am right now, to come to America. It just means that these things feel more impactful, but they are the exact same policy from the government standpoint.
Well, that might be true, but I feel like one thing that might be different now, unless maybe it was in the past, we didn't realize it, is that we actually have like more kind of competitive markets on the AI shit. So when the government shuts one down, it's not like you're completely fucked. Like there are other ones, and I'm sure there's a cost.
No, it's different. You're like, you might be right in the future. Like as trying to get better, but if in terms of a company or like even a government, like if you shut down the access to like Claude like thing, it is materially massively different in terms of just downloading DeepSync or DeepSeek, sorry, like model from China or like some like European model. Like those things are way far
but do
behind.
you think it would be?
Like
Do you think it would
OpenAI
be?
versus Anthropic?
Would it be significantly different right now if the government would have
Are you-
banned? Let's say that you generally use Claude or whatever for your coding thing. Would it be significantly different for the government to ban just Claude, or for the government to ban all types of AI things like that are comparable to that?
Oh, do you mean like in when you say difficult? Do you mean from like a government perspective or?
I mean, like, would it be way more
people?
scary for the market? Like right now, if the government does whatever for Anthropic, there's still like other models to choose from. I understand there'd be a cost for
yeah,
different
okay,
whatever.
yeah.
But I'm saying
Then,
that
yeah,
like because there are
it'd be
so many
huge.
different models, like it's not as substantive. Whereas if there was
No,
only
it'd be
one
massive.
big model, it would be huge. Yeah, that's yeah.
The concentration to
Massive.
the top like models is like 70% for the enterprise. Like most people, it's the same for like cloud. They're using Azure, like AWS and GCP, right? Like most people use OpenAI and Claude, right? Anthropic models. There are a lot of companies that try to use like their own, open models and stuff like that. But it's not worth it for them to have like the on-prem like inference capacity or to do it out to like scale out to cloud business. So yeah, it would be very, very, very impactful.
The hidden
you
thing,
from the
though, right
Metaverse?
now with this situation is that we now worry that this is going to cause all the model makers to not necessarily release internally strong models except to key partners, or maybe even simply use them internally, be more nervous with releases and things of that nature. So, Stephen, to your point, like one of the things, though, even with just this Anthropic one, if it's not just political, as in if OpenAI knows that GPT 5.6 might be banned, or they are in conversation with the government where they're pausing the release, we might be getting this effect. Right now, it like won't affect the U.S. because the open source models that are internationally available are not nearly as strong. But there's this sort of weird thing where we might go into more private routing of these models, where only secure enterprise contracts, or to the overall point about certain nationals or certain countries.
Wouldn't you be
or
cutting out though
consumers get
like
access.
so much of the market that like nobody would actually stand for that if you were an equity owner here? You'd be like,
This
listen.
is
Most
the
of their
fear,
money is
though, right? And so
enterprise.
the question, as always, is like, what is Peter Thiel willing to put up with because he's invested?
Sure. Also, when you say most of the money is enterprise, though, but it's not like enterprise to like just like one company. No, it's enterprise, and that like all you have
Yeah,
access to a ton of
and it
business.
requires end users
The-
to
the-
be motivated. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's
The money
talking,
that-
what he was
the
talking about
money
is that they
that-
would just like heavily limit the availability of these to like just a singular, a few enterprises or whatever is what it sounded like.
Right, and they could even decide to use it internally, kind of at a peak, and try to deploy applications that would, kind of subsume some other companies, just from a use case basis. But then again, this would be the thing that would catch up with the industry. To your point, right? It's like, okay, if you do that, you're especially right now not going to realize, kind of in the same way that in general we don't realize how AI is covering for just like a tremendous amount of deficit. The frontier models we have now are covering for a lot of the weird Trump things that happen, where like this should be a much bigger deal, because again, it's going to create a chilling effect on every other company's ability to release any sort of either consumer or generally available B2B model. Like again, I think that's like the question as to whether or not we need to find out whether this is Anthropic or not based on whether OpenAI releases 5.6 or Google releases 3.5 Pro. Is like, okay, are we having a political fight that might be better for the industry? Because then it's not, Trump saying, oh, this was actually the last set of reasoning models that the general public was going to get access to. That would be really scary for the industry. And I don't know if we know what would happen over the next 6 months in the equity markets.
I think
Because no one was
assuming assuming that like assuming
mom.
that it actually is fuck
Sorry.
you. Assuming that it actually is like a national security concern, though, isn't it the case that like that would be a good thing? Like
Yes,
if we
yes, that's
assume
the
that
question,
everything that they're
though,
talking
right?
about is
Yeah,
actually
100%.
No, it would be fucking retarded, because this is like the train is like 100 yards from running off the edge of the track, and you're like pushing the stop button right now. If it was actually a national security concern such that they recognized they had to like prevent the release of a model when every other model is so fucking competitive, and when it was already partially released, and when everybody around the world is like I feel that's way too little, way too late.
Yep,
Well, I mean,
that's
if
right.
if you're saying it from like that kind of perspective, but I mean, if you're talking about the problem is this government is so fucking stupid.
Yeah, like I wouldn't even agree. People talking about like a chilling effect. I don't even know if there will be a chilling effect, because you know the massive amount of money to be made, like researching all of this. You know the impact on GDP, on workers, on everybody across the country. Like, is the U.S. government, the fucking Trump admin, really going to be the one to be like, okay, guys, we need to be a little bit more careful. The people who've shut down like one of the most important straits in the world for oil for no reason for the past 5 months is going to be the one to chill everybody on AI. I don't believe that'll happen.
Yeah, I mean,
but consider
there's
that
also
we
the
haven't had
aspect
any
that
of these
like
sorts of bans. No, that we haven't had any of these sorts of bans on model releases. It's really expensive to, first of all, train a bunch of checkpoints. So you might improve the model along the way, which is something we see a lot now. Now, if you can't deploy those improvements to consumers or get general business usage, that's a huge hit to your revenue. If you're going to deploy a model
we'll see how
and then
long
a
it
week
lasts.
later
We'll see.
because there's not a good
We'll see how long it lasts.
There's a very important thing
harm
with
you
this
from a
admin,
go-to-market
okay? They
perspective
are
as well, and from a marketing perspective, your reputation, obviously, because you have to pull the model. If again Trump does it the way he does it, no process, that's going to be hugely damaging to your reputation. No one can rely on transacting with your models.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a part of this thing that people are missing is like the government is very stupid. I agree, but I'm going to say this is why I'm hedging, because I'm going to say something that a lot of people are going to disagree with. But like, there's parts of this government where like they do foreshadow like what they're going to do in some aspect. Like even the Iran war, like they were basically saying that they were going to do it for a long time. Like, he said, oh, he's going to do his stuff. Like they. In some ways, he doesn't, and a lot. Like the terrorists were way out of what line.
Yeah, you can
like,
be stupid and still foreshadow. Nobody disagrees with that, right?
They were. If they were genuinely going to go, like they were like, this is a change in our like what's the word, like modus operandi. We're going to now be limiting. They would be telling the labs this, and this would have leaked. Like this is 100% leaked by now. This wouldn't have lasted a single day if OpenAI was told, and they are talking to these people. I know that like we've
They're
seen
literally
it
in the
pass.
fucking
Like,
White House. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So
they talk to the officials. If they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna not gonna allow any of these models now, or if they're still figuring out, we know this. So right now it's in limbo. We have no idea if this is like a oh fuck moment, and like maybe the lobbyists were like, yeah, you need to do this, like I get rid of this, and then there isn't much consequence if we do it for like a week or two. But like past that, we have no fucking idea. Like it could literally be anything. Like right now,
it feels to me like another short-term political spat. But go ahead.
I think it actually could be a full-on national security thing, because if you look at it globally, where does our software come from? Microsoft. Where is that place based? Oh yeah, US. Of social media, all US based. Basically, all our software comes from the US. So I can understand the Trump admin might say like, oh yeah, we need to limit that stuff, because it could actually be a national security thing, like, if you look at it from that perspective.
I mean, it's just not in line. Yeah, and it's not in line at all with how. Like, I feel like if that was the case, if it was genuine. And I'm actually retarded. Maybe I don't know. Like, well, here's what I would look at. What have all the other companies said about this Anthropic ban? Like, have all the? I imagine
there hasn't really been
nothing.
The big two guys, so like Sam Altman and Amodai, have both maintained since the beginning, because they were both at the same place. Genuinely rough understanding of the same idea, where there needs to be government intervention. They want government intervention, and they kind of like similar. They diverge when it comes to like other countries. So like Sam is more pro thing, but like Amodai really hates China. So he is like okay for the foreign nationals bit. So they both kind of have that thing, but there is no one like saying, oh, this is really bad, or like it's kind of quiet right now.
Yeah. So I feel like if this was like a genuine change in perspective from the White House, wouldn't you expect to see some kind of like big joint statement or something from a lot of these CEO guys?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
No, because you hope as OpenAI and Google that you don't get hit by the same thing.
No. Wait. When you say hit by the same thing, that sounds like random, like, retributive stuff. I agree with you there, but that's why I think they're not saying anything, because they know it's like some bullshit. But if the US government, the White House was like, we're going to start cracking down on the AI shit, I feel like you would see that entire industry come out and like do some joint letter or whatever and be like, hey, like this is.
Keep in mind, they get to then help dictate the process. We don't know what the approval process will look like, because again, we haven't had this framework conversation. So is it a third-party audit? That's what a lot of Anthropic and OpenAI executives will say when they're in the press. They're like, okay, we think that there should be government regulation, but actually this should be a third-party process with, even in Dario's thing, it says without any political bias. Like, it's literally language in his blog post about this. And so the question is, does OpenAI get, kind of access to whatever this process is and feel like they can actually release models with
insofar as like leaking, like right now you just have what might be literally the most unstoppable fucking flow of capital of all time. Why would you ever want to throw up any kind of like, if maybe like chaos? No, not gasoline. You'd be throwing like the biggest like hesitant thing up to have some indecision here for anybody.
You don't risk this.
Yeah, like let's say that you're not Anthropic. Let's say what?
Right, but like this is the question for OpenAI: is can OpenAI get away with it? By the way, they hate each other. So Dario and Sam and those two companies hate each other. So if you think as OpenAI, and again, remember, these people are like trying to get away with a lot, and I think it's a bad habit they're forming. If you think you can get away, with not ruining the entire industry, but Anthropic gets hurt. Those two.
Yeah, but that's not what we're talking. This would be ruining the entire industry, right? You're talking about like 9/11 with a third plane. Like this would be a huge.
The biggest thing here is you're trying to play this into logical processes. It's not how it works. Everyone knows that when these bubbles happen, they are not based on logical things like the other is mania. Okay, we are in mania right now. Everyone believes that we're going really, really high up, so everyone wants to get ahead of that curve, right?
Yeah.
If you don't play with that curve, but like
because you just want to have the most explosive growth ever. You don't want any caution at all right now.
There is every time.
No, wait. There's something here that
there is nothing to substitute what you're saying there in terms of like the corporate side.
Except I'm not saying what you think I'm saying, so let me correct it. What I meant is not that Anthropic would die. Obviously, that would be terrible, and OpenAI knows that would be bad for OpenAI. What they would know though is if there's a process being built, there's going to be an audit process, and they know that there won't be a release. They can get a release advantage that Anthropic's not going to thrive on because maybe it requires access to Pete Hegseth. Maybe it requires having innards for the Trump admin. Therefore, they're going to have an advantage. Yes, you're right. If it would kill Anthropic, the bubble would burst and they'd have a bad time.
So like
but
this
if
is
it can damage Anthropic.
Ironically, I feel like the analysis you're using is akin to the one the neuroscience guy was using for the market stuff earlier. We are in a world right now where these companies just have such an unfucking fathomable amount of cash ahead of them, not based on what's happening now, but based on where people think things are going in the future. Why would you engage in some like wacky, wild, petty bullshit? Like imagine tomorrow somebody got antimatter engines and we just found out that we could fly to another fucking star system to start mining like infinite gold or silicon off some other planet, and then like you're like, okay, what if I can sabotage that dude's spaceship and then throw all the antimatter? Like, why would anybody do that right now? That would just be crazy.
Two reasons. One, the two of them kind of see each other as an existential threat in the race to AGI, and again, their disdain for each other is kind of underrated. You can even hear it like Dario continues to say when asked about why he left OpenAI to start Anthropic, well, when you can't trust someone, you just can't trust them. When this is going to be the most powerful thing on the planet, you just Do
you think that all of the underlying like the stakeholders, the shareholders, all?
So if you follow a lot of the researchers, and I'm talking about the top researchers at Anthropic and OpenAI, and again, I'm not suggesting they're saying, oh my goodness. We're murdering each other. They will tweet during these times very unsupportive statements that
have
are
anybody now
opposite. Though? Say again?
I mean,
has anybody now though?
Yes,
OpenAI. Stuff. No, but OpenAI's team, the Codex guys, the OpenClaw guy they are tweeting about this not directly. Like if you're a passerby, you won't notice, but if you are at all paying attention, you will see that they are not rooting for this at all, but they say that Anthropic is getting what it keeps asking for because they yell at Anthropic about being too safety pilled and about marketing poorly, and Anthropic yells back saying, oh, you guys care about the same thing but aren't being honest. These people see each other as political enemies. So that's one reason is there's a real disdain and a sense of existential threat. The other, and again, I think this is kind of underrated, I think they can get away with it. So far, OpenAI, for example, did in the DoD fight. They got kind of ahead of Anthropic. They kind of committed to some of the similar terms. Anthropic's kind of still in there, but OpenAI benefited in general.
Okay, wait, hold on. Yeah, wait. But these are you're talking about like itty bitty fights over contracts or maybe some things, but this is like an existential to the industry type fight.
But
I feel like
you come out as Sam when you think you have an out, and instead what you do is you get Trump's attention on you as well, and you get a ban for hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue next few months just disappears.
Yeah, but I feel like it's the thing that would kill you right now would be the uncertainty. Like if you were ever going to come out and take a step, because imagine how
both
violent.
Are really bad.
Well, my guess is going to be right now that a lot of the capitalization that's going on for these companies is based on some assumed stability to deliver on some kind of future products. And if the stability were to be shaken right now, I don't know if it would hurt like future investment. I feel like there might be a dramatic reassessment of what these are right now.
We can look at the DoD. Sorry, we can look at the DoD instance, right? This is the challenge. OpenAI again might just think this
Hold on. What is when you say the DoD instance? What do you?
So do you remember when Anthropic was ripped out of the Department of Defense? Pete Hegseth was telling about them.
Yeah,
right. That's the permission thing. So
wait. How does this compare to like banning the release of an AI model?
It absolutely does.
There is a complete difference between you being in a massive financial bubble and you are taking the most like iconic and like piece of the feedback loop.
Again, the idea would be I think you're assuming Anthropic's going to die. Hold on.
It's the model release. That is what's important.
Relax your shit. I'm going to tell you the story. Respond to the story. Respond to the story. The story is something like this. Just like last time, Sam kind of helped Anthropic by telling the DoD, hey, we need a process. No one should get banned. All of those sorts of things, right? That's the same set of things that happened last time. I'm telling you that the instance, if you're Sam, would be something like, okay, if they're not going to die, if this is just a weekend, this harms them significantly, I'm okay with it. And moving forward, if it doesn't repeat itself over and over in this new framework, that's okay. In other words,
hold on,
again,
wait. Okay, so wait, here's a question. Here's a question. Let's say that Anthropic, after the DoD thing, let's say that they were just permanently locked out of like the government.
That would kill the industry. Yep, that'd be bad.
If Anthropic
that'd be
was
industry killing. Yes.
Do you agree with that?
That would have crushed the industry.
If Anthropic was locked out of having like government contracts.
All government contracts?
I don't think it would have mattered at all for Anthropic.
All government contracts or DoD?
I don't know if I say all government contracts. Like, I mean,
if you're saying like federal, maybe that's fine. But if you're saying like, oh, they just are banned from working with the government entirely.
The only way it would become meaningful to them is if you banned all companies that did government contracts could not use that
exactly.
stuff.
Sure, but that's not what the DoD.
No,
you
that
say
was
that,
one
but
of the worries.
Okay,
they
sure.
said subcontractors.
Okay, so that, you're talking about a hypothetical worry in the future. Right now, something that happened was the entire release of a model seems like it was banned, which is nothing. I don't think it has even remotely been close to that level.
No, it hasn't. The closest was the diffusion rules that came from Biden in terms of the equity market.
Just to make a
week and they're allowed to re-release it, but again, OpenAI also gets kind of a benefit here of Anthropic taking a huge hit. This is the sort of thing that they seem to be okay with in their executive-to-executive fight.
You're talking about this too much on a lab perspective, which is completely ignoring what we're talking about. There is the labs
we're talking about
because you keep saying, oh yeah, you think if Anthropic's going to die. That's not what I care about at all. I don't care about that. What I care about is we are in a financial bubble which relies on sentiment, right? And then if you throw wrenches into that sentiment, you don't know what's going to happen.
We're in a fake, but this is a fake economy right now. This is a fake market. When you say this,
no, we're not in a fake economy. These are real things that happen, and you can see them happen in real time.
The notion
is
whether. Hold on. No. This is.
You're just using that because you don't understand how it works. So you're throwing all the fundamental.
I don't know why.
Chill. Everybody,
chill.
Relax.
Seriously.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I'm just saying it's true. If you just score something fake in whole analysis,
okay. When I say fake,
who cares? You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Go back to what you were saying. Don't argue the semantic retarded points. Go.
All I mean is we have a weird market where it doesn't seem fundamentals matter anymore because Trump picks his winners and losers. Elon picks his winners and losers. We have multiples that don't necessarily make sense.
Yeah, that's
when
not
I say
true.
fake.
Wait. Okay, hold on.
What?
No, stop. It's so not relevant. Shut the fuck up. Hold on. Everything that you're talking about, okay? Everybody in here agrees with that Trump picks winners and losers and all of this weird shit happens, okay? However, okay, I'm vibing this, but I'm pretty sure I'm correct. There has never, from my perspective, been a roadblock thrown up against the entire AI industry as a whole where everybody was like, oh shit.
Yes, it's unprecedented.
And so them blocking the whole release of a model, that's like an unprecedented move.
The whole point of this like AI thing is each time you release a model, it gets better, and then as such, the momentum gets higher, and then you keep releasing better models and momentum higher. You can always bring up the argument, oh, we already have amazing models, and yes, that is true. That's not going to argue against. But the point is that the markets are what drives this industry.
Okay, we understand metal, and then go, Shervin, go.
The whole thing that we saw last time was also completely unprecedented, which is why, by the way, Google and DeepMind employees actually did do the thing where they came out and said something, and some OpenAI employees did as well, and Sam worked behind the scenes talking to the DoD to try to get them to work with Anthropic. That was also completely unprecedented. I'm not saying this isn't an escalation, but we have to realize that was actually identical. And again, Google DeepMind folks took the first risk, and then a few OpenAI employees, and then Sam behind the scenes because OpenAI started to take the hit because during the weekend, a bunch of people uninstalled ChatGPT because they were rumored to be taking the DoD contract and installed.
Okay, here, this is. Wait, I understand what you're saying. I understand. We understand. You over-explain so much. Okay, this is my perspective on this. This is what it feels like. This is why I feel like there's this huge disconnect. If tomorrow the United States government said we are banning all use of AI in the Department of Defense, if that were to happen, then there might be a blip on the market. But if tomorrow the government said we are going to evaluate every single new model that comes out, and we might do a 2-week ban on every model, that might be like the end of AI in the United States. That you keep mentioning this DoD thing, but it seems like these are
ban, No, I don't think so.
For a potential, for whatever the time period needs to be, but just the suspension. Hold on. I think we are because in my mind, the blocking the one company from the DoD is not great.
Yes,
but given the total market that these people sell to and everything,
might be a process next, right? So if OpenAI basically says Anthropic is the one taking the hit.
I understand. No. You're missing everything. You keep saying this. You keep saying there's a process. Blah blah. That might be true, but there's a difference between like there might be a process to gain access to the DoD, whereas you're saying there might be a process to release your model, which is like industry ending.
And it's government involved, which is a whole new aspect.
Hold on. process to release your model is something that even the model makers want. They don't want the government
that's what
to
everybody
do it
wants.
willy-nilly, but they actually, literally, Dario's post says, we want the government to be able to prevent
You're
No,
not arguing
no,
that
that might be true, but we don't know what that is right now, and the government just suspended a model, and we don't even know why they did it.
Hold on.
You're arguing that regulation
wait,
is
other
good.
person, what do I call you?
Huh?
You.
Metal
Yeah,
Explorer.
Metal.
Metal. Oh, we've tried it. Okay. You keep like saying this from an extreme perspective, and Stephen, this is the point I'm making to you. I agree with you. This is an escalation that's huge. Again, the risk profile or the risk appetite of these people because of their hatred. I am actually saying there is something like, okay, if we don't think the government is going to do a 4 week, no, 4 week is even not that bad either. Let me put it this way: Sam has an in to the government through Larry Ellison, through David Sachs, through Elon Musk. He can have a security around, okay, I don't think this is going to fuck up the entire industry, but I want Anthropic to take the hit. That is something completely within Sam's purview.
Okay, but I feel like you're now in the same world. Hold on, you're in the same world as the neuroscience guy now.
No, I'm
you're
not,
telling
because
me
this is all
that
behavior
nobody
we
would
see.
leak.
We see tweets. We
Whoa,
see
whoa, whoa,
posts.
whoa,
We see
whoa!
the
You're
employee
telling me
stuff.
that the other company, that Anthropic would immediately come and go, by the way, every fear we've ever had of a corrupt AI crazy dude being a fucking dictator demon, this guy literally went to Trump and got our shit shut down? You don't think that wouldn't be the most sensational fucking headline?
No, I didn't say he caused it. I didn't say he caused it.
That was
If
my
he brought this up in a
impression.
meeting, it would have been leaked. If he brought this out in a meeting,
I did not say we caused it. That was never my claim. What are we talking about?
If he caused it in a sneaky way by somehow
I
gaining...
didn't say that either. Hold on, I didn't say that
Okay,
either.
I have no idea what you just said.
You're
I'm sorry.
saying he influenced. You're saying he influenced this decision.
Rewind. I genuinely don't remember how we got to this thread, but I did not say he influenced it. I said that he would be.
No,
happy
you were.
with it.
You were saying.
No, it's the market. Hold on, it was the market.
No.
No. We're talking about the market and the risks of the market and whether or not these employees, these executives, would come out with a statement. That was the thing we were claiming. I would never think Sam would have encouraged this. It was about why they're not saying something. That's why we started
Okay,
this,
that's right. Okay,
and I still stand.